experts with me here in the studio. I really appreciate that you phoned in, and definitely a lesson for us that we should take to heart. We have another caller, and that is Khomotso.
Good day, Ms. Maria. Welcome. All the best for the 3 hours.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm building up on the last caller, right? And I'm going to give you a specific case, and I would say myself. Everything she said, she's correct. I don't want to add to it. But I think one of my frustrations when I'm dealing with Momentum and other companies, I'm a single parent. I'm raising 2 kids with special needs. I need things, whether around estate or retirement, whatever, that is specific to that. And you will laugh how many times when call center people call you and you say that to them, they're like, no. It's August. We're busy with breast cancer. I'm like, no, breast cancer is not my problem. It's something that I need, but what gnaws at me, where my money goes, where my energy, where my fears are, is if I'm raising kids who are permanently dependent on me, what is the best decision to make or the best coverage to have? And I've called a few, not just your company, and people are generally low. They'll be like, no, we don't have things like that, wada. And I think in those conversations that were being suggested, can we talk about that? Like, how do we customize certain things? Because, I mean, if you look, I'm an autism mother, but I'm sure there are other parents with different things. It's such a need, and it's to a point where in the support groups I'm in, we're even afraid to have those conversations because it feels like there are no answers at hand. And that's why sometimes you get people, in a whole depression to be like, listen, if I go, if anything happens to me, I hope my kids go with me, because there doesn't seem to be anything that is possible. And I think I would love to hear conversations around that, or what is possible. Because I'm sure you can do it. Not with women on top. I'm sure you can do it. All right. Yes, thank you.
Oh, Khomotso, thank you so much. I do think that, and we're going to try and talk about that this morning as well, is the reality that we all face, not just women, everyone, of balancing the demands of today with having to also plan for that future and that unknown future. And how often what we need to do today will take preference over the fact that we also need to start to think about a future. And often that future feels, 30, 40 years ago. We always think that we have a lot more time. But please stay tuned this morning. This is a wonderful topic. It's a rich topic, and it is one that we're going to keep on unpacking. And now, and this is wonderful, we have a man on the line. Moses, you're most welcome.
Hey, good morning. How are you, my sister?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful topic that you are actually putting on discussion there. It is imperative, indeed, that we must definitely save as we heal, so that when those days, that darker days of old age and stuff like that, must find us ready, so that we must continue living our life normal, trying to manage our stuff as if there's no age that has just actually taking over here. Hello?
I'm here, Moses.
Yeah. I think every one of us, as we are still energetic, we must definitely try and save for the darker days that we are all going to face someday.
Thank you.
It is important that we mustn't just live from hand to mouth, as sometimes people do.
Thank you. And if I can maybe link to that with another thought, is that most of us have round about 40 years where we are being paid a salary by our business or the company we work for. But the reality is that when we get to retirement, there's 30 to 35 years where what we've saved actually need to start paying our salary, where we are possibly no longer able to earn those salaries ourselves, but we have to get ready and make sure that we have enough to then look after ourselves. So an absolute reality for every single one of us. And this morning we're going to try and keep it real. We're going to try and give you as much as we can, as much information as you can, to help you on that journey. Now, if you've just tuned in, here on Power 98.7 and on Power Talk, I'm Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group, and we are sponsoring this slot from 9 to 12 today. I'm really excited that it is Women's Month. So today we're not just talking to women, we're talking to every person out there, but about the incredible important topic of retirement, and specifically that success has a number. Do you know yours? Please go and participate in our competition. We've got some money coming your way, and we are now almost at time for our headlines, but I think we have another minute for another call. And on the line we have Rolex.
Hi Jeanette, how are you?
Very well, and you? Thanks for phoning in.
Thank you so much. You're talking of a very important topic that speaks about after we can no longer be able to work for ourselves. And I think women can be the better savers of money, because unlike us men, we spend a lot on things that are just temporary. And what I've realized is that women are very excellent when it comes to saving for the future, because I can even give you an example that, when you give a woman money, she might not use it all, and she can save. Even if it's 50 rand, there will be something left to be saved. So, but it's important for everybody to learn, no matter how difficult the economic situation we are going through right now, that everybody must learn to save for the hard times of the future. Thank you very much.
Rolex, thank you very much. You clearly have the right woman in your life. Sometimes we have the opposite reputation, that we spend money too easily. So you're definitely one of my favorite callers this morning, because you make all of us look very, very good. Now, I just want to remind everyone that the lines are open for the competition moment, and to remind you of our question. Just after the headlines and the traffic, we are going to open the line finally to get to the answer. So let me repeat the question. Because women generally live longer than men, how much more retirement savings do women need compared to men? Call now, and if you have the answer to that question, you might walk away with 3,000 Rand cash, courtesy of the Momentum Group. We have time for one last question, because we've got only 1 minute left. Bonishwa, over to you.
Good morning, ma'am. Hope you're well. Very quickly, I think it's because, just my assumption, right, that women have a lot to handle on a day-to-day basis. So they have to take care of themselves, the family, the household, the relatives. So generally, they just have a lot to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I think men just have a much bigger leeway or much bigger room to be able to think about the future and save for the future, just because of the household, relationship. And I'll make an example with relatives that I know. So an aunt of mine, till today, is still struggling and, with savings and everything, because there's problems and bills and this relative, and she has to do this and she has to, withdraw money to pay for this, etc., etc. So those long-term goals, become very difficult for her to reach. On the other hand, my uncle, his job is just wake up, eat, go to work, and then provide some money at the end of the day. So he's got the time to be thinking about the future, especially because if he won't be around, I think from not an ego, but from a provider perspective, if he'd like to have that sense of peace that, there'd be some sort of provision. But he's not worried about cooking the rice today and, the vegetables and the money for that. And I think for me, that's essentially one of the reasons why.
Bonishwa, thank you so much. We don't have time for me to discuss what you've said now, but please stay tuned. That's what we're going to spend the next 3 hours on. It is now time for the headlines by Nyakalo Tefo.
Good morning. In news-making headlines at this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa has noted the recommendations contained in the second interim report of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The commission has recommended disciplinary action and criminal investigations against Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, Witness G, Sergeant Fani Nkosi and Brown Mokhotsi. It says criminal charges should be instituted if sufficient evidence is found. The report also calls for an urgent investigation into an alleged off-the-books criminal intelligence operation involving Mokhotsi and Witness G. The presidency says the latest referrals will be handled by the South African Police Services Special Investigations Task Team established after the Commission's first interim report. His presidency spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya.
The report revisits the recommendation and referrals made in the first interim report in respect of the South African Police Service, based on prima facie evidence, and with one exception, confirms these recommendations now that the relevant implicated parties have appeared before the Commission to give evidence. The report also sets out new recommendations and referrals made by the Commission on the basis of evidence heard since the start of 2026.
In other news, South Africans are being warned to prepare for potentially disruptive weather conditions as a powerful winter storm system sweeps across the country over the Women's Day long weekend. The South African Weather Service says the system will reach the Western and Northern Cape on Sunday before spreading to other parts of the country, bringing freezing temperatures, heavy rainfall and possible snowfall over high-lying areas. Communities in low-lying settlements have been urged to prepare for possible flooding, while motorists and coastal residents are being advised to exercise caution amid rough seas and dangerous waves. South forecaster Tukello Chilwane has more.
Rain and showers expected over many areas, while snow is expected over the mountain ranges of the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. There is a small chance of light snowfalls over the high-lying areas.
More on these and other stories at 10.
Power traffic.
A very good morning to you. Let's check out what's happening in your roads. If you're traveling on the N12 westbound as you're traveling past El Dorado Park, there are delays that you'll bump into from the Klipspruit Valley Road exit. They clear after the Abu Bakr Drive exit. That's in Lenasia. If you're in the city of Ekurhuleni traveling on the N12 or the R24 westbound, both routes are heavily backed up at the moment. Approaching Lulis, the R24 is slow from the Edenvale Road exit. You can also expect some congestion as you're traveling on the N3 south from Linksfield Road heading towards the Galulis interchange as well. If you're heading into the Sandton CBD, Grayston Drive westbound is also experiencing some delays from the Catherine Street exit. That pressure clears before you get to the Rivonia Road intersection at the Daisy Street intersection. If you are traveling on Rivonia Road southbound, you can also expect some minor congestion between South Road and Grayston. Marlborough Drive westbound is very slow as well, with delays between the N3 as well as the Far East Bank Drive intersection. And remember, if you come across any further traffic incidents that you'd like to report, tweet at Power987 Traffic. For Power Traffic, I'm Mohammed Kel.
Power traffic.
And I'm honored to be part of this year's 987 Women lineup. Join me on the 6th of August on Power Perspective from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. as 987 Women of Vision take over the Power airwaves. You should listen to the show because I will be in conversation with incredibly inspirational women in the health and wellness space. You don't want to miss this.
Wait is over.
This Women's Month, Power 987 celebrates extraordinary women leaders in society.
The 2026 987 Women of Vision. Now we're talking.
Pedestrians crossing the road in winter can be deadly, especially on highways. These are no walking zones for a reason. Always use pedestrian bridges and designated crossings, even if it takes a little longer. No shortcut is worth your life. Stay smart, stay patient, and always cross where it's safe. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
And you
yes, I am a millionaire. And then you'd be on the couch with your 6 numbers. But the 7 is for heaven, or yes. But 4 is for the door, or yes. But 38 is never too late, or yes. Well, the lucky life draws are back. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. That's the live draw at 9 p.m. The National Lottery. No games, no chances, no money. Here's my 18 years old. Please watch. The National Lottery is officially operated by Caesar Kai.
Here comes the money. Here comes the money.
You listening to Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais, the CEO of the Momentum Group. And it's Women's Month, so you are listening to hashtag Power987Women. She owns her success takeover. And it's competition time. The lines are open for our first Momentum She Owns Her Success competition question. If you've engaged with today's Momentum competition post, we have shared on Power987X and Facebook pages. Let's see if success has a number pays off for you. So, on the line, we have Bonolo. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeanette.
So, Bonolo, because women generally live longer than men, how much more retirement savings do they need compared to men?
I think they need 10% more.
Do we have an applause? Bonolo, congratulations. You have just won 3,000 Rand cash, courtesy of Momentum She Owns Her Success campaign. Please stay on the line so the producer can take your details. And once more, congratulations, Bonolo.
Thank you.
Well done. We have 2 more cash prizes, so stay tuned throughout the show. The question will be announced just after the 10 o'clock news. In the meantime, go to Power 98.7 Facebook or X page right now, find the Momentum competition posts, like it, and include hashtag She Owns Her Success. So, you're on Power 98.7 and now we're talking. It's Women's Month and we are talking about the very important topic of women, retirement, and our theme is Success Has a Number. And this morning, we are now going to tune into the retirement conversation with 2 famous South African women. I am incredibly excited to have 2 women who normally find themselves on this side of the microphone in my studio here this morning. Every successful woman has a story about the sacrifices she made, the risks she took, and the lessons she learned along the way. But today, we're talking about something we don't discuss nearly enough. Life after the spotlight, after the career milestones, and after the paychecks. Retirement isn't only about growing older. It's about making sure that women you working so hard to become today is also taken care of tomorrow. And for many women, financial empowerment begins with one simple but powerful decision: taking ownership of your own financial future. As I promised, I'm joined by 2 of South Africa's most celebrated women, Charlene Lakay, radio and TV personality, and she's multi-talented. She's also head of sustainability at the Momentum Group, and a dear friend, Devi Sankari Govender, investigative journalist, most feared by the crooks in South Africa, television presenter and media personality. So ladies, normally you are asking the questions. Today, that power is mine. You are in the hot seat. We're having an honest conversation about money, independence, and why retirement planning should start long before retirement itself. So I'm going to start with a question for both of you. Growing up, what did money look like in your home? Was it something that was openly discussed, or was it a subject that belonged mainly to the men in the family? Devi.
Okay, I'll take that first. First of all, you're doing a very good job. Let's just say that.
I would rather run a company than to sit here, I tell you that.
Great job. Okay, so for me, money was discussed very openly. And if I look at my family, the focus and the theme was always on saving. Save. don't spend money that you don't need to. Is the need and want situation in my house was there from the very beginning. Do you really need that or do you want it? And the difference between. So it was pretty open.
For me, completely the opposite. I actually wanted to ask you what money, because that was the kind of situation that we grew up in, and that's not a poor me statement. It really just was. It wasn't there, and it wasn't something that was openly discussed, really. But what I do have to say as an anecdote, the day my mom passed, we found 17,000 rand hidden in flower pots throughout the house, because that's how conscious she was about saving. And we knew that actually she was a housewife, and my dad was a carpenter, so he worked when there was work. But she was the one who was actually controlling the purse strings, though. She was the COO and the CFO of the household. So although it wasn't discussed, there was a very definite sense that there are rules around how you spend and how you save, and she's in very strict control of that, as we saw on the day she passed.
Oh, Charlene, I mean, what a beautiful, touching story. I can say that in my household, money was also not discussed. It was something my dad took care of. I remember how my mum struggled because she almost lost her independence because she had to ask him for money for the household and for everything. So I think that is how young it starts with us and our relationships with money. So then let me maybe go to another question. And just to remind our listeners, you are listening to Power Talk. It is with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm from the Momentum Group, and we are talking about women, money, retirement. Success has a number. Do you know what yours is? To both of you, was there a defining moment in your life that changed the way you think about money? A setback, a success, or a lesson that made you realize that financial independence matters?
So for me, we discussed money and saving and all of that. But on the flip side of that, my parents had a very difficult relationship. So my dad worked. My mom was a housewife, took care of my sister and I. And I saw from a very young age that money is power. And when you don't have it, you don't have access to the power. And I later figured out not only is it power, money is oxygen. When you don't have access to it, my mom didn't. So my mom had to ask for everything. She didn't control, my mom didn't even have a bank account, I remember, for many, many, many years. It was much later when I went off to university. So I very quickly understood that power dynamic of where I needed to be in my life, because I didn't want to be like my mom and where my mom was. And my mom kept saying to my sister and I, get your own job, earn your own money, because then you can talk. Literally. That's what she would say.
Oh, Debbie, thanks for sharing. Charlene.
Now, for me, it was conquering the fear of money and the anxiety about money. There wasn't money. It wasn't discussed. We didn't get pocket money. So when I started earning, I didn't know what to do with it. I had, after I paid the bond, maybe 10,000 Rand in my bank account, and I thought I was rich. I thought I could conquer the world. But really, it was about learning to not be afraid and learning that money is a tool. Money is a tool that gives you access to express your dreams, to attain your dreams, and it can be driven by the stuff that you long for and that you believe in. So I very quickly got myself a very good financial advisor. I know it sounds like that is scripted, but it really isn't. And that is the most important relationship in my life. I mean, he knows almost as much about me as my therapist, because you have to be honest with
you probably more than our husbands.
Probably more. You have to be honest with your financial advisor so that he can advise you appropriately. But if we're talking about a defining moment, I guess, how deep can we get at 9:45?
No, you can go. You can go for it. Go for it.
But it was after the failure of my first marriage that I went, okay, I didn't see this coming, and I should have planned better.
Yeah.
And although I wasn't entirely dependent upon my then husband, my ex-husband, I definitely wasn't alert to the fact that I would have to maybe take care of myself.
Thank you for sharing all of that. So if you've just tuned in, you're on Power 98.7. Now we're talking, and we are talking this morning. You're on Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group. It's Women's Month, so you are listening to the She Owns Her Success takeover from 9 to 12 today. our theme is all about retirement, and success has a number. I'm privileged to have with me in studio Charlene Lekay, radio and TV personality, and the well-known Devi Sankari Govender. And they are sharing with me the lessons that they have learned through the years on retirement. Now, Devi, when you hear, fabulous you, when you hear the word retirement, what emotions come to mind? Are you excited? Are you anxious?
I'll tell you why I'm excited. Because I don't ever see myself retiring. I see myself doing things.
Because there'll always be crooks.
Well, you know the story, Jeanette, of course. But I don't see myself as ever reaching that date where, they give you the Krugerrand or the watch. I don't know what they give people in this day and age. But I see myself, I get excited because for the first time in my life, I've been working for 33 years straight. I've never taken a break. I've had children through the process. I want to be able to know. I know I'll have enough money to take on the projects that I would like to take on, but I'm booking that world cruise, hey? I'm booking the nice cabin, not the one with no window.
Not
I'm
the
booking
economy class.
Yes, no. I'm doing the one with the balcony and the deck
The
chairs.
ocean view.
Yes. So I know I'll be able to have a bit more balance, although I'm trying to get there at some point in small doses. So I am excited because I can be me, I can do me just better.
And the wonderful thing about that is, as we've said, our topic is success has a number. Everything has a number. That is a dream. That dream has a number. You already know how much that ocean view cabin is going to cost, and you need to make sure that that cabin doesn't interfere with your retirement.
Yep.
So that's it. Success has a number. Charlene, women often spend years caring for children, parents, partners, extended family. I think especially in today's day and age. The sandwich generation, is that what we call? Do you think women are encouraged enough to also prioritize their own financial future, or do we still just put ourselves last? And we've heard this from some of our listeners this morning when they were calling in as well.
It's very difficult because we think that we need to balance all of these different demands, and really we don't have to. We don't need to do everything all the time for everybody. But I think we still don't pay enough attention to putting ourselves first. I try to teach my daughters that, my responsibility as a parent, yes, is to provide for you, and I'll do I'll do the best that I can. But you must understand that there are some needs that mommy also needs to fulfill. I do need my spa day. It's not a luxury. It's actually a me time day. I do need to say that maybe we can't afford to do whatever activity it is that you want to prioritize now, because the long-term plan is that we're actually saving for your university or for your college or for the choice that you should have one day to whether, as the one wants to do, whether you want to become an animator or whether you want to start your own business. So I'm prioritizing your future choices, but in doing that I also need to balance that with my current needs and my time. Otherwise I will not be able to sustainably be a provider to you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That took me a long time to learn. Because my entire life, I'm the eldest daughter, eldest grandchild, eldest, and we take on all these eldesty things. The responsibility, pilot on my shoulders, I'm here, I'll fix it, that kind of thing. And it took me a long time to learn. When you on a plane, they say put your oxygen mask on first before you assist other passengers. Well, that's what it means, because if you don't put your own oxygen mask on, you're going to be dirt, people. You're going to frick. That's what it means. So it's so important. So that was a very late thing that I realized, that you got to fill your cup, because then you can be better. Now I fill the cup and then I'm like to all the other responsibilities. The whole not my circus situation.
Yeah. But you also take away from your kids and whoever is relying on you the opportunity to be accountable and to learn and to build that confidence. So no, I draw the line. I've started to draw the line much better.
Yeah, I think I was great with my kids because I didn't want them to end up like the other ones. #. But with the other ones, the family and all of that, you have a different sense of responsibility. Sandwich generation. We are the filling, and then you've got these two tiny slices of bread on either side.
Power 98.7 listeners, you can hear that I think I'm in charge, but I've got two ladies here with me in studio, and if I don't stop them, then, I'm giving away my power. You're listening to Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais from the Momentum Group, and we're doing the woman she takes her success takeover from 9 to 12 this morning. We'd still like to hear from you on our studio line 0861 987 000, on our WhatsApp line 083 303 7093, Twitter @PowerFM 987, #Power Talk, Facebook, where you can also find our competition, Power 987, and then online streaming www.power987.co.za.
The 2026 987 Women of Vision.
Power 987 celebrates extraordinary women leaders in society.
Who's from the Department of Education? What concrete assurances can we give parents that children are not currently being harmed or supervised by individuals that should have never been allowed near them in the first place? As an administrative function in education, we are making sure that these schools in each and every province will have as we make sure that we can rid our schools of these sectors and making sure that we can bring parity within our sector and at no point will allow for a situation where young vulnerable learners are at the PSLs in the student.
Celebrating incredible women of vision.
The 2026 987 Women of Vision. Now we're talking.
Let me get this right, Ron. You're a plumber by day and Pretoria's smoothest wedding DJ by night.
Yeah, it started out as a passion and now I've got bookings until December. And a smoke machine that needs its own seatbelt.
And you sold your car to buy a van through We Buy Cars.
Brew, it was music to my ears. Zero admin, no long queues. They pulled in, checked it out, and before I knew it, I had cash in the bank.
Now that's a banger. We Buy Cars. Geared for your passion, geared for you.
987 Women celebrates women who are actively shaping the future.
Now we're talking.
So welcome to Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm with the Momentum Group, and we are taking over the show this morning. It's August, it's Women's Month. For the month of August, at Momentum, we flip our M, we become Womentum for the month. We take over, we run the show. And here with me in studio this morning, I have two amazing women. I'm sure you've picked up on the energy here, Charlene Lekay and Devi Sankari Govender. So now I'm going to dial it up a bit. So to both of you, what is the biggest financial mistake that you have made, and what impact has that had on your financial success or retirement? Charlene, let's start with you.
Not having a proper anti-NUP in place for that first one that went south. I didn't think straight. And that's really important. So when I lived abroad for a while and when I then came back to South Africa, I came back with a little less than I left with, okay, because the anti-NUP wasn't structured properly. So I started off, so to speak, from scratch. I moved in with my dad again, and then very quickly discovered that I really needed to find a job again and get my own place. I love my dad, he's passed now, but this was not going to work. And I think not having the proper advice at the time and thinking too much with the heart and not enough with the head, that really cost me. I've since recovered. I have a good financial advisor. I see him more than once a year, and I would advise anyone to do that. Don't wait for that once a year a call. Make sure that they stay attuned to your changing needs, because your needs will change. And I've managed to get myself onto a good, solid financial path again. But I could have done without that setback. And I think we need to encourage young women to think independently. Someone I know always says, I'm going to say this in Afrikaans and then try to translate. A man is not a plan. A man is nie a plan nie. Okay? A man is not it is true. And I think young women these days, are much more empowered. They think differently. They don't think like we used to. And so it's maybe a bit different for them. It's a message that I would drive home over and over again.
And you want to share with our listeners who's that person that says that?
Well, it's a very powerful woman in the power seat today. She's sitting right over there, Jeanette.
So I was very young when I used to wake up when my mum and dad were having financial money conversations. And I was probably 5 or 6 when I wrote in my little booklet next to the bed, I will never ask a man for money. And I think that's where it was born. It was that my mum was losing her independence because she had to ask for everything. So you can hear, I have 2 fabulous ladies here with me. The energy is there. We are having this conversation. And Devi, now we want to hear from you what the biggest financial mistake is that you've ever made.
It's not to rush into decisions. So I bought my first property when I was 25 because it was always indoctrinated into my head. You don't rent, you must buy. But that kind of mentality is something that you need to actually debate with often. So I buy it, and Jeanette, this was now 1998. You know when the rand fell?
Yes.
And the interest rate went up to 24 point something percent. That was me with my little 1-bedroom place there in Morningside in Durban. I had to go get myself another job so I could make up the 1,800 rand that was extra now on my bond. And I only lived in there for 2 years, and then we got married, my husband and I, and then we bought a house. So the advice and that sets you back, because property is not something you go invest in now for 2 years,
and
people.
sell tomorrow.
No. Because this is pretty dumb now to go and do that. And I wish that I had known that, but because I thought, this is how everything must fit in, but I was wrong.
Thank you. Now, it is almost the top of the hour. I cannot believe how time is flying when we're having this much fun. So, Charlene, if your younger self, just starting a career, was sitting across from you today, what is the one piece of financial advice that you will give young Charlene?
You are not going to look this great forever. You are not going to feel this great forever. Things might change. And I think one of the things that really bugs me that we don't talk about enough is how women's health needs and cost of servicing those health needs change. I mean, I've seen specialists in the last 2-3 years. I know them all on first name basis. So menopause and all of these swear words, I can see you blushing, the engineer over there, that we don't want to mention. You have to take account of the fact that you will age and you will need you will need a different financial support and access to financial support, and you best provide for that yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece of advice that I would give to me then, my 25-year-old self. And just because at the time I was a freelancer, I was a contract worker, so you didn't have a regular income. I think the industry wasn't also structured like that, where they were attuned to gig workers, really. But I would tell myself, whatever you get today, save at least 60 to 70% of it. Not just because the income is irregular, but because you want to provide for your future self. And it's there's always a plan to make. There's always a choice for flexibility that you can make.
Mine is a shorty. I made sure with my first job, I went and got all the things. You speak to the financial advisor, very proud of myself. But what I would say to myself is, you are doing the right thing, even though it feels hard, and you'd rather use the money for something else. But it's working. You won't regret it.
Oh, Devi, Charlene, our time is up. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so incredibly real. I can see you know what your number is. It's top of the hour, it's 10 o'clock, and it is time for the news with Nhlanhla Siume.
Power News.
Many thanks. A very good morning. In stories making headlines, the head of IDAC, Matthew Sisoko, has taken the stand as a new witness before the Madlanga Commission, and President Ramaphosa has noted the recommendations contained in the second interim report of the Madlanga Commission. With the Power News at 10, a very good morning. I'm Nhlanhla Siume. The head of investigations and operations at the Investigative Directorate Against Corruptions, Matthew Sisoko, has taken the stand as a new witness before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Sissoko is featured heavily in ongoing testimonies with multiple witnesses pointing to his central role in internal decision-making processes at IDAC. Former IDAC head Advocate Andrea Johnson and other investigators frequently reference Sissoko regarding how case assignments, investigations and prosecution strategies are evaluated. Other witnesses, including investigator Mancha Rapeshu, raised concerns before the commission regarding instances where major projects move forward without Sissoko's immediate knowledge as head of operations. Sissoko outlines his career in the criminal justice system.
My current position at IDAC is the National Head of Investigation and Operations. I assumed that position in October of 2021 as a seconded employee from IPID and then formally transferred to the NPA in 2022 December. Before then, I was the head of investigations at IPID, and then I had an illustrious career within IPID and its predecessor, ICD.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has noted the recommendations contained in the second interim report of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The Commission has recommended disciplinary action and criminal investigations against Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibia, Witness G, Sergeant Fanny Nkosi and Brown Mokhotsi. It says criminal charges should be instituted if sufficient evidence is found. The report also calls for an urgent investigation into an alleged off-the-books crime intelligence operation involving Mokhotsi and Witness G. Here's Presidency spokesperson Vincent Makwenya.
The report revisits the recommendation and referrals made in the first interim report in respect of the South African Police Service based on prima facie evidence, and with one exception, confirms these recommendations now that the relevant implicated parties have appeared before the Commission to give evidence. The report also sets out new recommendations and referrals made by the Commission on the basis of evidence heard since the start of 2026.
South Africans are being warned to prepare for potentially disruptive weather conditions as powerful winter storm systems sweep across the country over a Women's Day long weekend. The South African Weather Service says the system will reach the Western and Northern Cape on Sunday before spreading to other parts of the country. Here's South African weather forecaster Tukelo Chilwani.
Rain and showers expected over many areas, while snow is expected over the mountain ranges of the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. There is a small chance of light snowfalls over the high-lying areas.
And finally, the Western Cape High Court will today continue hearing counter-arguments from the state and supporting political parties as the landmark 5-day legal challenge against South Africa's Expropriation Act enters its 4th day. The challenge brought by the DA, AfriForum and the Institute of Race Relations argues that provisions allowing for land to be taken without compensation are unconstitutional. However, President Cyril Ramaphosa's legal counsel, Advocate Hamilton Mayenji, has urged the court to dismiss the challenges. The state also insists that provisions allowing for nil compensation in exceptional circumstances will still be subject to strict constitutional oversight.
To identify set instances where the provisions of nil compensation may be just and equitable for expropriation in the public interest, to repeal the Expropriation Act of 1975 and to provide for matters connected therewith. So part of the Act is to identify instances where it may be just and equitable to offer nil compensation.
The rand's at 16 rand 35 cents to the US dollar, 22 rand against the pound, and 18 rand 86 cents to the euro. Gold's at $4,262, 74 cents per fine ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $79.86 per barrel. Recapping the top story in Power News at this hour, the head of IDAC, Matthew Sissoko, has taken the stand as a new witness before the Madlanga Commission.
In power traffic, we start off in Sandton. If you're traveling on Greyston Drive westbound, you can expect some slow-moving traffic with delays starting shortly after the Catherine Street exit. They clear just before you get to the Rivonia Road intersection. That's at Daisy Street. Traffic lights and four-ways are out as you're traveling on Cedar Road. That's at Witkoppen as well as at Fourways Boulevard. If you are traveling on the Golden Highway northbound in Eldorado Park, as you are getting out of Eldorado Park, you'll bump into those delays just before Union Avenue. Heading towards Devland. The N12 westbound is also experiencing a lot of pressure this morning with delays at just under 15 minutes from the Klipspruit Valley Road exit heading towards the Abu Bakr Drive exit in Lenasia.
Power News. 987 Women celebrates women and who are actively shaping the future.
Now we're talking.
Today's program is proudly brought to you by Momentum. She owns her success. Visit momentum.co.za to register for the workshop.
This is Power 987. And now, you're listening to Power Talk on Power 987. 9 a.m. to midday. Taking your calls on 0861 987 000.
It is August, it is Women's Month, and you are listening to me, Jeanette Marais, the CEO of the Momentum Group, and it is the takeover that we call She Owns Her Success. Our topic, our subject that we're talking about, our theme is Success Has a Number. And now, what you have to look forward to in the next hour is, firstly, I have someone with me in studio that's going to help me unpack whether you know your number. And then after that, we are going to talk about how your mindset about money impacts your behavior, which in the end impacts how much you will have to retire on. But before we get there, it's time for another Momentum Success Has a Number challenge, and that is the competition that we are running today. There is 3,000 Rand up for grabs if you can answer the next question. In general, women retire with how much less retirement savings than men? Head over to the Power 98.7 Facebook or X page, find the latest Momentum competition post, like it, and remember to include hashtag She Owns Her Success. We'll open the lines again at 10:35, where another listener could win 3,000 Rand in cash, and that can help with you reaching your number. All you have to do is call and answer the question correctly and walk away with 3,000 Rand cash. So let me just repeat the question. In general, women retire with how much less retirement savings than men?
Momentum is back with Season 8 of She Owns Her Success. This year's theme, Her Success Has a Number, unpacks how most financial goals don't fall short because we lack ambition. They fall short because they're too vague. Register now for the workshop on 15 August 2026 at momentum.co.za and get expert advice to help you define your number. Join the conversation online using hashtag She Owns Her Success. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized and registered credit provider.
Keeping you up to date with what you need to know.
I want to tell the stories.
Power Talk. Weekdays, 9 a.m. to noon.
This is a wake-up call
on Power 987.
And it is Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais. Our next topic is, do you know your number? And with me in the studio is Faria Adam, the CEO of Structured Products and Annuities in Momentum Investments. And Faria is an absolute specialist when it comes to retirement. She's way too young to even think about retirement. But Faria, I want to tap into your brain in the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you for joining me here today. We often hear people say that they are not saving enough for retirement, but very few people know what enough actually means. How do you help someone move from simply saving money to understanding the financial goal that they are working towards?
Hello everyone. So it makes perfect sense that people struggle with putting a number to retirement because there are so many unknowns. But simply put, retirement has two legs. The first one is the savings part, where your number should really be about how much can you save, the maximum that you can possibly save in your current circumstances, and more importantly, how quickly can you start. So retirement planning isn't something that you will deal with one day. Every rand that you invest now works for your future self, and you have to remember that actually you're investing in yourself. The second part is the retirement income itself. Now, we've said it before, retirement is when you start paying yourself a salary every month. So the assets that you accumulate must be sufficient to cover what you need. And to put a number to what you need, you first need to understand your expenses. Start with what you know and understand that not all expenses are equal. So the first and most important are the must-haves. How much will you need to cover your groceries, your utilities, your medical aid? And how will these expenses change over time? For example, what do you do if you need help later in life? Do you have family or financial products to assist you, or will you need a budget to help you? Life expenses are the opposite. Life expenses are not flexible. And for you to retire with dignity, you have to earn an income in retirement that can cover these expenses in full. The second category is to understand your ideal lifestyle. So based on your lifestyle and the things that you do for enjoyment, your holidays, your hobbies, somebody mentioned their spa days, what are the nice to haves that you want to cover? So these expenses are generally more flexible, and if you don't have the income to support it, you can probably still work around it. So if you're not sure about your number in retirement, start looking at the money you spend today, how much of this is critical versus flexible, and then you'll determine what you actually need in retirement.
Freya, thank you very much. So you are with us, Power Talk. It is the takeover Women She Owns Her Success for the month of August, and we are talking all things retirement. So Freya, what I heard from you was first understand your own life, and that is unique to every person. And then make sure that you understand firstly your life expenses, that is not flexible, and then there's lifestyle. And those are maybe the nice to haves. But I think it starts with a budget. And so many of us, don't even think about a budget. And really that's maybe where we need to start. But let's try and unpack it a little bit more. For someone listening today who has never calculated their retirement number, where do they begin? What are the first questions that they should be asking themselves?
I think it comes back again to just understanding your lifestyle. What you said is actually very true. It's how do you put all of this together, and how do you understand who are your dependents going to be in retirement? When do you want to retire? All of those types of questions, start putting the number together. Now, I think when it comes to retirement, these numbers change over time because life changes. There's times when you take a break from working, when you actually when you have more expenses than what you did in the past. For example, when you start, I think Charlene mentioned earlier that you should save 60 to 70%. When you first start working, that's actually an achievable goal. But over time, you're covering bond payments, you're covering school fees, kids' education, your life changes. And the point is that your financial plan must change with your life. So your number is not going to be a static number that you set one day and it never changes. It has to evolve as your life evolves.
And I would actually say, and both of our guests before said that, get yourself a financial advisor. Get someone who can help think with their head, not with heart, because we're also all emotional when it gets to our money. And it's sometimes just too complex and too difficult. So get yourself some help. And that is what we're talking about today. So let me also just again remind you of our competition. The lines will be open from 10:35 for our second competition moment. And again, the question that we're asking is, when women retire, with how much less retirement savings do they retire than what men has and what men has accumulated? Call now, and if you have the answer to that question, you might walk away with 3,000 Rand in cash, courtesy of the Momentum Group, because it is August, and it is the takeover that we call She Owns Her Success, and success has a number. With me in studio, Faria Adam. Faria is an absolute specialist to help us find what that number is. So Faria, when people think about retirement, they often focus only on the amount that they have already accumulated. Why is it equally important to think about the income that money needs to generate, and then of course how long it needs to last? And we've just shared that women will probably outlive their male counterparts.
So the accumulated amount, usually it's the biggest amount that most of us have ever saved. So it can start to give people a very false sense of security. The big question is, how do you make that accumulated savings amount provide you with an income that must last for as long as you live?
And you don't know how long that's going to be, right?
You don't know. You need the income to be reliable for the rest of your life. To your point, it can be 20 years, 30 years. If you live to 100, it could even be 40 years. Now, the average amount to give you an example, the average amount that people retire with at Momentum Investments is just under 2 million Rand. For a woman aged 60, The real income before tax that translates to is just under 10,000 rands per month before tax. So as you are getting closer to retirement, you need to understand what is the income that your retirement savings will allow you to have so that you can take some action if necessary.
Sure, that all sounds very complex. So I think, if you're listening and if you're getting anxious about what you're hearing, get yourself a financial advisor. Now let's help and let's explain in simple language the different products that will supply financial income. We all hear about annuities. What is an annuity? How does it work? Can you combine it with something? Which of these do you want to take out? And how can we have a structured conversation about retirement income?
Okay, so I think it's very important to understand what the options are. So in South Africa, we have two main retirement income options when it comes to products. And you have to take your accumulated retirement savings and convert them into one of these income options. So the first one is what we call a guaranteed life annuity. Basically, it is what it says. It offers you a guaranteed income. Essentially, you give your retirement savings to an insurer. They commit to paying you an income every month for life. It carries on no matter how long you live, even if you do live to 100. Despite what happens in the market, the income can't change. And the key benefit is really simple. It's guaranteed, it's certain, you cannot outlive the income, and you don't take any kind of risk with it. So for people who want proper certainty, investing only in a life annuity is the way to go. The second option is the living annuity, and it offers something quite different. It keeps your money invested, but it gives you flexibility over how much income you draw each year. That flexibility can be very valuable, especially because needs change over time. But the greater flexibility also comes with more responsibility. So if you draw too much or you take the wrong investment approach, it can lead to your money running out. So you have flexibility, but you also take risk. Now, this one or other option is not really suitable for everybody. People need a bit of certainty, but they also need flexibility. So the market is shifting more and more towards these blended solutions, where you use the certainty of the life annuity to cover the essential expenses that I mentioned before, while keeping some assets in the living annuity to provide you with that flexibility and the potential for growth. The most important thing is to have a plan that reflects your reality. And as Jeanette said, retirement planning is very personal. And this is where good financial advice is so important, to understand how to use different products in the South African market to actually create an income stream that reflects your real needs.
Priya, thank you. We are warming up. It is Power 98.7. Now we're talking Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais, the CEO of the Momentum Group. It is the She Owns Her Success Takeover, and we are talking all things retirement. And our theme is Success Has a Number. We have a caller on the line, Victoria from Pretoria. Victoria, it's nice to hear from you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm retired. I retired in 2019. And what I need to actually indicate is that I was brought up in a Catholic environment where nuns were teaching us how to save and everything. So I'm very prudent. I don't need any explanation, and I tried to live my life in a most simple and inexpensive manner. But the reality struck me when I retired, and I discovered that some of my pension could not be accounted for. And I have done extensive investigation, and I am aware that they told me that one of the companies that administered our savings was Momentum. And I went to Momentum. They found my name and everything, but they could not find anything. So I am still here many years with an unresolved query. I've been going through FSCA, pension fund adjudicator, you name them. And of course, they have time frames, and I made sure that I observe those time frames. but nothing to date has been resolved. What is very, very serious is that you discover these things now when you are retired and your employer is unable to assist you because you are a retiree, and the people who were involved in this are now also retired, some of them very comfortably. And I do hear all the advices about financial advisors and everything. My case right now is that I have 3 pension numbers, okay, that nobody, no financial advisor can explain. And then the pension adjudicator just closes the case because the time has lapsed. And of course, this matter was started immediately, but the responses were slow and everything else. And of course, I have to also listen to somebody saying that, no, usually during retirement, some people spend carelessly and everything, and when their money is exhausted, then they run around complaining that their pension fund was not enough. And by the way, that is very patronizing. How does Momentum help somebody when Momentum is named as one of the administrators? And there is also correspondence to that effect where they communicated and said, no, we're trying to find this person's documents. And they never come back. They never conclude anything.
Victoria, it's never nice to hear a story like yours. You have not just my sympathy, but my absolute commitment that I have a team on standby this morning. If you will please leave your number with our producer, they will make sure that my team, who's actually right here in studio, will phone you back. And my commitment is that we will do absolutely everything we can to assist you, to help you find the real truth, find you what's going on, and help and assist you on this. It is the last thing that we ever want to hear, that we have a distressed client who thought that they are okay, that they've saved enough, that they lived prudently all their lives, and then something like this happened. So I'm really sorry to hear about it, and be on standby. My team will be in touch with you this morning still. That is the promise that I'm making to you. So listeners, you are listening to Power 98.7 Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group, and I'm privileged here to talk about a topic that is so close to my heart. Not just women and their retirement, but retirement in general. And we are talking about success has a number. Do you know what yours is? This world that sometimes feels so complex. So let's continue with our conversation, and don't forget about our competition. Make sure that you go and that you answer our question on the Facebook page. Find the question there, and you will stand in line to win 3,000 Rand sponsored by us, by Momentum, to help you on your way to find your number. So let's return to studio, and with me, Faria Adam. And Faria, one of the biggest questions in retirement planning is not only how much money you have, but how long that money needs to support you. How should people factor longevity into their retirement number, especially women who live longer than men? Because we don't know what the answer to that question is.
And we won't. But on average, we look at numbers. On average, a 60-year-old woman lives about 3.5 years longer than a 60-year-old man. Now, that doesn't sound too big, but to secure the same real retirement income, we heard it before, a woman needs about 10% more capital than a man. But what we see in practice is that women retire with less savings on average. And it's expected because statistically we are more likely to experience career gaps for caregiving duties. More importantly, it highlights why tailored income strategy is vital for women. To understand your context, to understand your health, and then to understand how do you use the different products that are out there to help you to protect against your longevity. So how do you combine certainties of guarantees that insurance companies can give you with flexibility to ensure really, because the aim is the same for everyone. We want to make sure that no matter how long we live, we will not run out of money.
Thank you. I think, everybody need that reassurance and need to hear that. Because here's the reality. We have, 35, 40 years that we work, during which we save only a small percentage of our salary so that we can also live. And then after that, we've got, like you said now, 35, 40 years, during which whatever we've saved actually then has to take over. And that calculation actually only works if we start early, if we save as much as we can, if we never dip into our retirement savings. If anyone asks me what is the biggest retirement mistake people make, then I would say they wait too long to start. And then they dip into that retirement savings when they change jobs. Yes. That is the one thing that we see so often, which means that the younger you often steal from the older you to support a lifestyle. And that almost impossible to ever make up for that lost time. Now, we have about 4 minutes left. So let's go to a short question about tax. That's not something we like to pay. And, are there products that can help with tax? Does government incentivize us? Explain that a little bit to us.
Okay. So retirement annuities and retirement products definitely offer lots of good tax benefits. They're tax deductible contributions and the growth is tax free. But perhaps the one I want to touch on here is tax-free savings accounts. Now, tax-free savings accounts are fantastic. All the growth is tax-free. And when you get the money from it, when you take the proceeds, it's also tax-free. Now, what is so interesting is that some projections show that if you start a tax-free savings account for your children and contribute over time to the cap, there's an overall cap of 500,000 that you can put in, but that money can be sufficient to fund their retirement. And the main reason is the tax-free growth over 50 or 60 years. How fantastic will it be if this generation can solve the retirement savings problems for our children?
I mean, that is an amazing number. And actually, I think that touches on what we all call the eighth wonder of the world, which is compound interest.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, you need millions and millions to be able to retire, and yet you've only really put 500,000 Rand in. A lot of what you score there is the fact that it's not taxable. But on the other hand, it actually buys you time. It buys time for your child and for the rest of their lives. Thank you for sharing that one with us. So let's get to our last question. Women are increasingly becoming responsible for managing household finances, whether through their career success, divorce, widowhood. How important is financial confidence in ensuring that women are prepared to take control of their own future?
I think it's critical. So the best way to feel in control is to understand. If you know what problem statements you're looking at, you can understand what are your options, and you can understand what are the questions that you need to ask in order to fit it into your life. I also think that it's important, just based on what our previous caller said, look at your statements, look at the information that you get about your financials over time, not only at one point in time, but every year. Have a look at it and understand it. Understand what it can do for you and understand where the gaps are. But this only covers financial confidence and freedom for women themselves. I think it's quite critical that the next generation and all our children grow up with an even better understanding of the financial levers and impacts. So we start to change impact on different generations. And children learn many of these good habits from their moms and the women in their lives. So overall, I think financially confident women help to create financially secure families today and financially secure future generations.
Freya, thank you so much for helping unpack what could feel like a very complex and very difficult topic. And I really like the way you ended, which actually says that the best gift that you as a woman can give your children is good financial habits and understanding. Thank you so much.
And a tax-free savings account.
And a tax-free savings account. And that's a call out to all grandparents and parents out there. Get your child a tax-free savings account. So with a minute left until we get to the headlines and the traffic, please don't forget that in 5 minutes we're going to open the lines again for our second competition moment. And remember the question, women retire with how much less retirement savings than men? Over to you, Nhlanhla Sume, for the headlines.
And stories making headlines this hour. It started the Madlanga Commission, where the head of IDAC, or rather the head of operations and investigations at IDAC, that's Matthew Sisoko, He's taken the stand as the latest witness before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Sisoko is featured prominently in testimony heard by the Commission, with several witnesses pointing to his central role in the Directorate's internal decision-making. Former IDEC head Advocate Andrea Johnson and other investigators frequently referred to Sisoko while explaining how case allocations, investigations and prosecution strategies were considered.
My current position at IDEC is the National Head of Investigation and Operations. I assumed that position in October of 2021 as a seconded employee from IPID and then formally transferred to the NPA in 2022 December. Before then, I was the head of investigations at IPID, and then I had an illustrious career within IPID and its predecessor, ICD.
Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's noted the recommendations contained in the second interim report of the Madlanga Commission. The Commission has recommended disciplinary action and criminal investigations against Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibia, Witness G, Sergeant Fanny Nkosi, as well as Brown Mukhotsi. Here's Presidency spokesperson Vincent Makwenya.
The report revisits the recommendation and referrals made in the first interim report in respect of the South African Police Service based on prima facie evidence, and with one exception, confirms these recommendations now that the relevant implicated parties have appeared before the Commission to give evidence. The report also sets out new recommendations and referrals made by the Commission on the basis of evidence heard since the start of 2026.
And finally, South Africans are being warned to prepare for potentially disruptive weather conditions as a powerful winter storm system sweeps across the country over the Women's Day long weekend. The South African Weather Service says the system will reach the Western and Northern Cape on Sunday before spreading to other parts of the country, bringing freezing temperatures, heavy rainfall and possible snowfall over high-lying areas. I'll have more details on this and other Power News at 11 o'clock.
Power traffic.
A very good morning to you. Let's check out what's happening in your roads. I will start off in Eldorado Park. If you are traveling on the N12 westbound, you can expect delays that are just over 10 minutes as you're passing Klipspruit Valley Road. Those delays are clearing just after the Abu Bakr Drive exit in Lenasia. If you're traveling out of Eldorado Park, there's queuing traffic on the Golden Highway northbound as you're headed towards Devland. Those delays are at under 10 minutes from Union Avenue. In the east of Joburg, traffic is very slow on the N3 as you're going through the Galulis interchange, joining the N12 eastbound. The R24 westbound is also experiencing some delays from Edenvale Road approaching the Galulis interchange. Several traffic lights are out around the city of Johannesburg this morning. If you are traveling on Cedar Road in Fourways, traffic lights are out at Fourways Boulevard as well as at Witkoppen. Those traffic lights also out in Lone Hill at Main and Lone Hill Boulevard. As you're traveling further along Witkoppen, traffic lights are out at the Douglas Drive intersection. West of Johannesburg, if you're traveling on Hendrik Potgieter Road, those traffic lights are out at the Jim Forshare Road intersection. And remember, if you come across any further traffic incidents you'd like to report, tweet at Power987 Traffic. For Power Traffic, I'm Libuhang Pugelo.
Power traffic. Power perspective on Power 987.
A young lady receives 15 million rand to your NSFAS. She's charged. They're saying we're not going to leave any stone unturned. We are going to set an example, guy. But the guy who paid 4 billion rand, that was not even recovered from Stephanotis and others, enjoying the benefits. Nothing, no step whatsoever taken against him, taken against those companies that were a black-owned company. About 1,000 rand is missing from the coffers. I'm telling you, the minister will be having a press briefing. We are not going to leave any stone unturned.
Colleen Makubele on Power 987.
Gauteng province has begun a mass vaccination program against foot and mouth disease. But vaccination alone is not enough. If outbreaks are not reported, the disease will continue to spread. Farms with confirmed cases will be placed under quarantine to protect other farms and livestock markets. Foot and mouth disease can spread quickly between animals and farms if biosecurity and control measures are not complied with. By reporting suspected cases early, farmers' health authorities track the spread of the disease, prioritize high-risk areas for interventions, and protect nearby livestock. Do your part. Help curb the spread of foot and mouth disease. Report any suspicious symptoms immediately to your local state veterinarian or animal health technician. This message is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development.
Here comes the money! Here comes the money!
Welcome back to the hashtag Power987 Women. She owns her success. Take over with me, Jeanette Marais. In the next 20 minutes, we'll be discussing how your mindset about money impacts your behavior, which in the end impacts how much you will have to retire. But before we get there, it is time to open up our lines again to answer our competition question. And here's your question again. In general, women retire with how much less retirement savings than men? And we have someone on the line. Peter, do you know the answer to this question?
Yes, ma'am. And your answer to your question is it is 1/3 less than men.
Yay! Where is our applause, Peter? Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, babe. Thank you so much, Jeanette.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much for phoning in. Thank you for listening. Please don't go away. We have a lot more amazing topics for you this morning. Please stay on radio, listen to us, and stay on the line so that the producer can also take your details. So once again, congratulations, Peter. Enjoy that 3,000 Rand and spend it very wisely. Now we have one more cash prize, so stay tuned and don't miss the next opportunity. The question will be announced just after the 11 o'clock news. In the meantime, go to Power 98.7 Facebook or X page right now, find the Momentum competition posts, like it, and include hashtag She Owns Her Success. Now, back in studio with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group. And this morning, we'd really like to hear from you. We'd like to know whether you know what your success definition is. We want to know whether you know what that number is. Please phone us on the studio line 0861 987 000, WhatsApp line 083 303 7093, Twitter at PowerFM987, hashtag PowerTalk. On Facebook, Power987, also for our competition, and then online and streaming, www.power987.co.za. Now, this morning we are all talking about retirement, and not just retirement for women. So I'm very privileged to have with me in studio Paul Nixon. I've known Paul for a number of years, and Paul is someone who's an expert on a topic that I think is fascinating, and that is behavioral science. His role at Momentum is that he's the behavioral science lead in Momentum Digital and the Technology Office. Paul is a behavioral science expert. He explores the difference between the plan and the person. Most of us know roughly what we should be doing with our money, but very few of us actually do it. Paul's job is to work out why and then build that understanding into our technology so that your money knows you a little better. So Paul, welcome. Thank you for joining me in studio this morning.
Good morning, Jeanette.
You get paid to study how people go wrong with money. So let's be honest. Does knowing all this actually make you better at it, or are you as human as the rest of us?
Yeah, so the short answer to that is I've made many money mistakes. The only difference is that I know the exact psychological term for the mistakes that I've made. So I mean, there's a quick sort of and simple explanation for this, and that is simply that knowledge is not always sufficient to make good decisions, because when we get into that kind of emotive state or that mindset, actually what happens in our brains is that chemicals overrun our cognitive, sort of all the logical thinking center in our brain, and we rely on our gut instinct, which is not always the right thing to do.
So this is where head and heart meets.
Indeed.
So, to build on this, when we talk about money, we often assume that people make their decisions based on logic. I mean, it's numbers, it should be rational. But behavioral science suggests that emotions, experiences, and beliefs do play a major role. How does our mindset about money influence the financial decisions that we make?
So I think, look, there's many things here, right? So we can spend a lot of time on this, but if you think of two of the bigger influences, one would be or if we look at the components of mindset, one would be our personality. So if you think about a personality as a set of sort of behavioral patterns that characterize people, right? So some of us, if someone says to you that you're not normal, or you're not usual, or you're not, it just means that you're doing stuff that they don't expect you to do, right? And that's part of your personality. So how people understand and how they know you. So if we think of one of the most famous experiments ever done that deals with aspects or facets of that, it's the marshmallow test. So, for the listeners who haven't heard about that, it's simply a game where a child 4 to 6 gets one marshmallow put in front of them, and they have one simple task: leave it alone for 10 minutes. Right? And I think we can all remember back, 10 minutes can be a very long time when you're little, right? Your perception of time and your perspective is totally different. And if you actually can watch those tests, you can see how the kids actually struggle. Like it's a difficult, because they know what the right thing to do is. But it also shows you that their personality, first of all, because they're so young, half of that comes through our genetic code. So there is kind of an inherited aspect, a factory setting aspect. And some kids are just better at the future than others. And subsequent research actually showed that those kids were, more successful money-wise, right? So that's one of the big personality pieces that's important. And the second thing is your attitudes towards money, right? So you can have, if we continue the example, you might have the greatest factory settings. You were one of the kids who passed the marshmallow test, but you had 3 brothers or sisters, and you realized, or you learned, that if you waited, you didn't get a marshmallow. So that's how you learn about sort of certain aspects, like money, for example, and that's why these experiences are so important in shaping your behavior.
But before someone makes a financial decision, they already carry these beliefs, these personalities and things about them. And it's about money that were formed through their childhood, their family experiences, their personal circumstances. We've been spending the morning talking to people about their own experiences and relationships with money. How powerful are those early money messages in shaping adult financial behavior?
Yeah. So the short answer is very powerful. So, I've used the story a number of times, but we've all got stories about money in our childhood. So my big one is, I was very lucky to go to a private school, but my parents never had a lot of money. In actual fact, if there was a right and a wrong choice to make about money, they normally made the wrong one. But
are they listening this morning?
No. But the core memory there for me is that they used to drop me off at school, and a lot of my friends at school had a lot of money, or their parents had a lot of money. And I can still remember so much detail about this. It was an old Mercedes-Benz 230.4 1976 model. The door was kind of rusted. And sometimes this damn car would stall right outside the school. So I had to get out, open the bonnet, take a screwdriver, sort of wiggle something, and then the car. So that kind of what stuck with me was, I'm never going to be in that situation where I don't have enough money to show people that I'm successful. And that, it doesn't matter how much you know, if that sits in the back of your head, it determines your behavior. So a financial advisor can come talk to you about, listen, Paul, you're probably spending a little bit too much.
But you're still going to buy that car.
It doesn't matter, because you're not addressing, and that's what we speak about when we think about tone-deaf financial advice. The right answer can be wrong.
Thank you for sharing that. I think what is so amazing for me about this morning are these wonderful guests that I have, and their willingness to open up and share their own personal stories. And I think, that is exactly it. Success is different for every single one of us. We define it for ourselves, and it's very, very different. And then, as we say, our theme for the month, Women's Month, is Success Has a Number. So if you've just tuned in, you are with Power Talk. It is with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group. It is Women's Month. We have flipped our M. We are Womentum for the month of August. And you are listening to the She Owns Her Success takeover. And today we're talking about probably the most important topic that anyone can think about, and that is retirement. Yes, it's Women's Month, so it's about women in retirement, but I do think that everything we say is equally applicable to the men and our male listeners here this morning. Please share with us your thoughts. Do you know what your number is? On our studio line 0861 987 000, on our WhatsApp line 083 303 7093, on Twitter at PowerFM987, hashtag Power Talk, Facebook Power 987, also for our competition, and then online streaming www.power987.co.za. And here with me in studio is Paul Nixon. Paul is a behavioral scientist. So Paul, two people can earn a similar income but end up in completely different financial positions years later. From a behavioral science perspective, what explains that difference?
So there's a nice way of looking at this. So behavioral science kind of boils down into four simple, patterns of decision errors that people make, and you can think of this as ABCD. So the first is attention problem. So we tend to make the wrong decisions because sometimes our attention is on the wrong things. And I think we all know we're in the attention economy at the moment. Everyone is competing for eyeballs. Everyone is competing for our attention. And sometimes we are drawn to things, for example, like panic headlines, panic, theories about what's happening with the world, which actually, gets our attention, which means obviously that people are rewarded for that. But sometimes the decisions we make then with our money afterwards are not necessarily in our best interest.
Because they're emotional.
Absolutely. Right. So attention is a big issue. And our brains are designed that way. So if you walk into a room, where one wall is painted a different color, guess which one you're going to be looking at. So the second one is beliefs. Now, some of these beliefs, for example, are like, I'm just not good with numbers, or past performance is equal to future performance, or look at silver recently, which has just broken record highs, and everyone started creating narratives around, silver's going to be, it's going to increase another 3 times in value because we need them for solar panels. So these belief formation problems challenge again the way or our actions in respect of what we do with our money. So we have financial advisors have a big job in changing those belief systems, or some of those beliefs as well.
And one that I often hear is that women would say, this is just too complex. Yeah. I don't have the knowledge. I don't know this. I can't do this.
Yes.
What would your advice be to someone like that?
Yeah. So, the best thing to do is just to start at the beginning, start simple. So there is so much content out there. And artificial intelligence, by the way, is making big strides in that specific area. So there's already been some research to show that women are engaging artificial intelligence to gain access to this kind of information. Just simple information, right? So, you don't have to... I think the interesting thing about that is judgment. So that's the great thing about AI. There's no judgment, because sometimes people don't want to ask a question to a financial advisor, or even to their husband or wife, or whatever, because they feel they're going to look a little bit silly, right? So AI is very, very effective in providing that platform for people to get that knowledge without judgment.
Oh, thank you. Now another question. When we talk about knowing your number, for retirement specifically, it is not only about calculating an amount of money, it is about changing the way people think about their future. And how important is mindset in helping people define and reach that financial number? It's one thing to know it, it's a different one to actually change how you behave.
Yes, look, mindset, as we've chatted about, is extremely important. It's a very, very, one thing human beings are very, very bad at is thinking about the future. We can all it sounds kind of simple, right? So thinking about what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, but
or what holiday do I want? That's easy.
That's easy, right? But if you look at it psychologically, if you're thinking more than 10 years into the future, you're actually you relate to that person you're thinking about just as much as a stranger you've met on the street. So we completely disconnect from, once we sort of go a little bit 10 years out or further out into the future, we don't connect with that person anymore. So something you mentioned earlier about sort of robbing from your future self to spend now, that is why that happens, because we don't connect again with that person. So to get into what to do about it, when you think about sort of the future, don't just think about, a holiday you might take, or what you really need to do from a psychology point of view is think about detail. So what does a Tuesday morning look like? So when you wake up, what do you smell? What do you see? Is there a fireplace place in your room? What are you going to have coffee first? Can you smell the coffee? What is the furniture you're going to be sort of sitting on look like?
Visualize it.
But detailed. So detailed, not just thinking about, I want a nice house. That's not good enough, right? I want to know the actual detail in that. And that's the same thing if you're saving for a Porsche or you're saving for whatever the case, just a present for someone, or think about detail. Detail is very important to connect you psychologically to that goal that you have.
Thank you, Paul. So in a minute or so, we're going to take a break. But regardless of how you define success, it becomes more achievable if you don't just hope that your future will turn out as you wish, but that you actively plan, protect and own it. And Paul, you've just said also visualize it in absolute detail. And the topic this morning is so much richer because success becomes more achievable when it is clearly defined and measurable. Every goal has a number to strive towards, and it's more than a feeling. It can be acted on, measured, planned, and protected. And that is why during Women's Month, for the 8th year in a row now, Momentum has a campaign that we call She Owns Her Success. This year, the theme is Success Has a Number. And for the next hour or so, we are still going to unpack this very important topic.
Momentum is back with Season 8 of She Owns Her Success. This year's theme, Her Success Has a Number, unpacks how most financial goals don't fall short because we lack ambition. They fall short because they're too vague. Register now for the workshop on 15 August 2026 at momentum.co.za and get expert advice to help you define your number. Join the conversation online using hashtag She Owns Her Success. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized and registered credit provider.
National Lottery is here. Play Powerball, Lotto, Daily Lotto, Let's Play, and Instant Games. It's your chance to win big. Available at participating retailers, online and on your banking. The National Lottery. More plays, more chances, more millions. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. The National Lottery is officially operated by Citibank.
Minister of Human Settlement. I'm glad and honored to be part of this year's 987 Women Line. Join me on Power Lunch. I'll be bringing to you incredible music, very much light-heartedness, discussion, throwing a bit of some gap market housing for our first home financing. Don't miss out. Power 987. Letter to Cyril Ramaphosa.
The wait is over.
This Women's Month, Power 987 celebrates extraordinary women leaders in society.
The 2026 987 Women Division. Now we're talking. 9 a.m. to noon. This is Power Talk on Power 987.
And you're with me, Jeanette Marais, the CEO of the Momentum Group. It's Women's Month, and we are talking all things retirement. And this morning you are on the She Owns Her Success takeover. And our theme specifically is that success has a number. And that number is unique to every single person. With me in studio, Paul Nixon, a behavioral scientist at my company, someone that I greatly admire. And Paul, many people avoid looking at their retirement savings because they fear discovering that they are behind. You just referred to AI and the fact that there's no judgment. Sometimes we don't want to know the answer, right? What role does psychology play in financial avoidance, and how can people overcome it?
Yes, it's a big one, and they call it, what do they call it, the ostrich effect, right? Where you just kind of bury your head in sand and you hope that everything is going to be okay. Hope is not a strategy, as you would know. So look, it's not an irrational thing either. So we have a very important psychological mechanism to protect our ego as well, right? So we don't want to also find out something that's going to make us unfortunately hold the mirror up that we haven't maybe done the best that we could have. So my advice to people in that situation would definitely be try and really, really break it down into the smallest chunk that you possibly can.
How you eat an elephant.
Exactly, right, piece by piece. So start with very, very simple things that can make big or have big effects, just like a budget. So just getting an idea of, what are you bringing in every month and what is going out every month. And if, the one is bigger than the other, if what's going out is bigger, a very good start is just to figure out how to fix that. And again, AI is actually very good in those areas.
Yeah, and there are some amazing tools out there that we could use. And I would say get a financial advisor again. I think many people, don't even know where to find one.
Sure.
Ask someone that you know and trust. Ask them whether they have someone that they know and trust. And I think it is a way. And even when we worry about the ostrich effect, worry about, this mirror being held up, my philosophy is that savings is like planting a tree. 20 years ago is far better than today, but the second best time is today, not Monday, today. And, if you haven't started, if you're in debt, rather know what's going on. Because if you don't take control of your finances today, you might be in serious trouble in future. Now, before we get to our last question, I cannot believe how fast time is flying. To our listeners, please let me remind you of our competition. The lines will be open later again for our competition moment. In fact, just after the news, I will give you our new question that you need to think about and that you need to answer. But in the meantime, go to Facebook, Power 987 or X, and go and answer our competition question there. Tag us, hashtag She Owns Her Success, and like the Momentum competition post, and then we will give you a new question just after the news. Paul, no conversation is complete these days without talking about technology and AI. In fact, we've referred to that quite a bit already this morning. Can a piece of technology really change how someone behaves with their money?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you think of how behavior has changed with, things like Fitbits. I mean, how many times I've seen, neighbors at like 11 o'clock at night sort of, walking up and down the road with it. That's probably because they're trying to catch that 10,000.
Remember how in COVID we sneaked out to be able to do that.
Exactly, yeah. So can technology help? Of course it can. I think OpenAI has just launched their sort of personal financial advisor proposition, which is really, really great. And the good thing for financial advisors, by the way, is it's kind of, we're good at different things. So where that's very effective is in optimization. So if something can look at my bank account, kind of figure out what my spending patterns are, if I've got sort of 4 or 5 subscriptions, like I've got Netflix, Disney, Apple, but I don't actually watch 2 of them. It can help me save money. And a lot of us, how many of us these days have got like 5 or 6 rewards programs? Sometimes I walk into shops and don't even realize that I actually could get a discount. So AI could, again, be very good in saying, hey, just hang on a second, Paul, I see you're in Dis-Chem. Just remember you've got this, right? So you can get a saving here. Where it's less good, though, and I think that's where financial advisors have still got a protected area, is in the strategy, right? So the kind of the long-term plan.
What to do with the information.
Yes, exactly. And the strategy really is kind of just keeping you on track, but also understanding who you are. And that's the natural shield that I was talking about earlier. So again, going back to the example, I had this sort of, I have this view of success. So I need someone to tell me, Paul, look, I understand that it's important for you to show you're successful. But let's unpack that. So what is, so success, you can show it by obviously spending money on stuff, right? But success is also about building wealth, right? And no one would argue with that. Now, all of a sudden I'm thinking about, okay, well, this is different. So I'm doing something, but I'm not doing the other thing. So in that way, by someone knowing me, they can get me to do the right stuff and get me to buy into doing that and changing the way I think about stuff. And that's the important thing. Again, AI is going to be very, 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 it's going to be difficult for it to do that. But it definitely has a massive role to play.
And I think this is the future, right? Do we even have a doctor anywhere who don't, when your patient walks in, they have already Googled and they already think they have an idea. So it's this combination where the machine meets the human heart. And, while you were talking, I had a thought that says money shouts and wealth whispers. And I think, that is the difference, is that when you start to accumulate real wealth, actually your priorities shift completely. Now we're almost at the top of the hour. And we are almost at the end of this part of our conversation. what you have to look forward to, dear listeners, please don't go away, is an amazing topic that we're going to unpack even further after the news, which is why understanding your relationship with money is the first step to financial freedom. I look forward to, again, two very strong women, Kediboni Mooi and Gugu Sadaki, who are waiting and almost ready to join me in studio. But right now, we are going back to the news in Shansha Sume.
Power News.
Thanks a lot, Jeanette. Top stories at this hour. The head of IDAC's operations, Matthew Sisoko, has taken the stand as the latest witness before the Madlanga Commission. And Communications Minister Solly Malatsi says government is working to ensure that millions of South Africans who remain digitally excluded are brought into the digital economy. With the Power News at 11, a very good morning. I'm Tlantla Sihume. The head of investigations and operations at the Investigative Directorate Against Corruption, Matthew Sisoko, has taken the stand as the latest witness before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Sisoko is featured prominently in testimony heard by this commission, with several witnesses pointing to his central role in the Directorate's internal decision-making. Former IDAC head, Advocate Andrea Johnson, and other investigators frequently referenced or referred to Sisoko while explaining how case allocations, investigations, and prosecution strategies were considered. Other witnesses, including investigator Mancha Rapesu, also raised concerns about instances in which major investigations proceeded without Sisoko's immediate knowledge.
My current position at IDAC is the National Head of Investigation and Operations. I assumed that position in October of 2021 as a seconded employee from IPID and then formally transferred to the NPA in 2022 December. Before then, I was the head of investigations at IPID, and then I had an illustrious career within IPID and its predecessor, ICD.
Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi says government is working to ensure that millions of South Africans who remain digitally excluded are brought into the digital economy. His remarks come as two major mobile network operators challenge ICASA's new consumer protection regulations, which also require unused data, voice and SMS bundles to be rolled over instead of just expiring.
The cost of data in South Africa is still very high and unaffordable to many households, despite the advances and interventions that have been made, in the last couple of years, which are commendable. But the reality is, when you look collectively in terms, the cost of living in South Africa has increased over the last couple of years, and the demand and dependency on data consumption has equally increased and grown, which means that it is now an essential, oxygen in many households in the pursuit for either better opportunities for life, access to government services, or even learning opportunities.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has noted the recommendations contained in the second interim report of the Madlanga Commission. The Commission has recommended disciplinary action and criminal investigations against Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibia, Witness G, Sergeant Fanny Nkosi, as well as Brown Mohotsi. It says criminal charges should be instituted if sufficient evidence is found. Here's Presidency spokesperson Vincent Makwenya.
The report revisits the recommendation and referrals made in the first interim report in respect of the South African Police Service based on prima facie evidence, and with one exception, confirms these recommendations now that the relevant implicated parties have appeared before the Commission to give evidence. The report also sets out new recommendations and referrals made by the Commission on the basis of evidence heard since the start of 2026.
A driver of an eThekwini municipality water tanker that fatally struck an Adams Mission resident has been suspended pending investigations. The 38-year-old Celani water tanker in Adams Mission south of Durban. Zungu's death overshadowed a government oversight visit on Monday, where officials were inspecting water infrastructure projects across eThekwini and faced questions about the fatal incident. The municipality says it will cooperate fully with the investigators and has also extended its condolences to the Zungu family. And finally, South Africans are being warned to prepare for potentially disruptive weather conditions as a powerful winter storm system sweeps across the country over the Women's Day long weekend. The South African Weather Service also says the system will reach the Western and Northern Cape on Sunday before spreading to other parts of the country, bringing freezing temperatures, heavy rainfall and possible snowfall over high-lying areas. Here's forecaster Tukelo Chilwane.
Rain and showers expected over many areas, while snow is expected over the mountain ranges of the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. There is a small chance of light snowfalls over the high-lying areas.
The rand's at 16 rand 31 cents to the US dollar, 21 rand 97 against the pound, and 18 rand 83 cents to the euro. Gold's at $4,282.30 per fine ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $79.62 per barrel. Recapping the top story in Power News at this hour, the head of IDAC's operations, Matthew Sissoko, has taken the stand as the latest witness before the Madlanga Commission.
Power News.
My name is Teddy Simelane, Minister of Human Settlement. I'm glad and honored to be part of this year's 987 Women Line. Join me on Power Lunch. I'll be bringing to you incredible music, very much light-heartedness, discussion, throwing a bit of some gap market housing for our first home financing. Don't miss out. Power 987. Letter to Cyril Ramaphosa.
Is over.
This Women's Month, Power 987 celebrates extraordinary women leaders in society.
The 2026 987 Women Division.
Now we're talking.
This show is brought to you by Momentum. She owns her success. Visit momentum.co.za to register for the workshop.
This is Power 987. And now, you're listening to Power Talk on Power 987, 9 a.m. to midday. Taking your calls on 0861 987 000.
You're listening to Power 987. Now we're talking, and it is the last hour of the Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group. It is Women's Month, it is August, and you are listening today to the takeover that we call She Owns Her Success. And our theme is retirement and the fact that success has a number. Success is unique to all of us, and that number is completely unique. We would love to hear from you. We have an hour left to unpack a topic that I'm deeply passionate about. I have two wonderful ladies with me in studio. So please call us on the studio line 0861 987 000, WhatsApp line 083 303 7093, on Twitter at PowerFM 987, hashtag Power Talk, on Facebook Power 987, and then on www.power987.co.za. We all need coaches from time to time for both our hearts and our heads. But before we get there, it is competition time. And this is now the final Momentum Success Has a Number competition for today. So here's your final question. We will open the lines later, and at 11:35 you will have an opportunity to see whether you know the answer to. What percentage of South African women say they feel financially secure today? Go to Power 987 98.7 Facebook or X page, like the Momentum competition post, like the post, comment and include hashtag She Owns Her Success. We'll take our final caller at 11:35, and I look forward to you calling with the correct answer and win the last 3,000 Rand cash in the last hour of the show. So now, the psychology of money. We've heard a lot this morning about how to think about it, how to plan, how our relationship with money will influence what the final outcome for all of us will be. And this is all about why understanding your relationship with money is the first step to financial freedom. With me is Kediboni Moe. Kediboni, I've known you many, many years. I'm an admirer of yours. And she's an executive and business coach, author, mentor, and leadership development specialist with more than 2 decades of experience in business, consulting, and executive coaching. She's the founder of Optimal Change, a consultancy focused on executive coaching, leadership development, mentoring, and organizational transformation. Welcome, Kediboni.
Oh, thank you, Jeanette. It's good to be here with you.
Thank you. And then also with me in the studio is Gugu Sadaki, who is the MD of Wealth Creed and a top independent financial advisor who dedicates her time on enhancing the well-being and wealth of individuals and small businesses. Gugu is an expert in retirement planning, asset allocation, risk management, and investment management. She champions financial literacy through education and authoring children's books. So, to everyone listening, if you heard this introduction, you would think that Kediboni would talk to everything to do with the heart and Gugu about the head. But in my experience, everything to do with money often leads to high emotions.
Yeah.
Money is the place where head and heart collide. So, Kediboni, let me start with you. I started the show introducing that our She Owns Her Success theme for the year is Success Has a Number. And starting by knowing your number is a way to actively shape your life instead of just hoping for the best, to take control. How do you guide people to think about their lives and ambitions in general?
Jeanette, thank you very much. And good morning to the listeners. You know, reality is that, let me start with the She Knows Her Numbers. As everything in our lives is really about knowing our numbers. If we talk health, blood pressure has numbers. If we talk temperature, it has numbers. And we talk about everything else except that we don't want to talk about the numbers that are pertaining to money. And because it is the mental model, and I'm not sure if it is the culture, it is how the family structure is being set up, but point is, we just don't get there. We don't get to a point of being comfortable. And you mentioned the relationship with money. We're not comfortable to talk about the numbers of money, right? Because we are told, and in African languages, there's a saying that says in Sesotho, "Urata chelete," you know, in Zulu, "Thandimali," and it's a no-no.
Don't talk about
money.
money.
Don't talk about money like it's a bad thing. And money is what is going to give you some security as you retire.
Someone said this morning, I think it was Devi Sankri Govender who were here much earlier, and she said money is oxygen.
Money
because actually it gives oxygen to you being able to live, to dream, and to make those dreams come true. So, Gugu, our Women's Month campaign, She Owns Her Success, has actually been running for 8 years. So, one of our listeners this morning said, you can't just do it once a year, you've got to do it every week. We keep on adding things to it. But the crux is that it's up to every woman to own her success. Well, every person, but it is Women's Month. I like how Kediboni described a life strategy. It's so important and you need to actively drive it. This year, our campaign theme is Know Your Number. If what Kediboni says about life, how do you get to that number, you as a financial advisor?
Sure. It's a very, very big question. Morning, Jeanette. Knowing your number is really, really crucial. And as Kediboni has just said, it's a number that a lot of people shy away from because for the first time in their lives, when people have to approach their finances, they have to deal with their inadequacies, they have to deal with their shame, they have to deal with the fact that they may not have enough money to retire with. There are so many reasons why people don't go through this process. And getting clients to commit to a meeting with me where they give me their financials, it is such a big hurdle. Getting people to send me their budgets and their income statements is huge. Their balance sheets is huge. But yeah, knowing your number is important. It is a financial calculation. And I think just sharing it with your listeners like this, I think we're doing it a bit of an injustice. But I'll give the rationale behind the number before I give you, would you like me to give you an example of how we calculate it?
You can go there.
All right. So it's informed by a number of assumptions, right? We are assuming that by the time you get to retirement, you no longer are, if you've got children, you're no longer supporting them financially, so your costs have decreased quite considerably. We're also assuming that if you've had debt, it should either be paid off or reduced quite considerably by the time you get to retirement.
Does that include your home?
Yes, that includes your
Yes.
home
All
as well.
debt.
Yes, all
Yeah.
debt. We're also assuming that you are going to downscale quite a bit in certain things. You're probably not going to drive the big fancy car. You're probably not going to live in that 4-bedroom house that was
I'll
housing
need to
all your
buy
children.
less shoes because I'll be
Well,
retired.
look, the shoe discussion, I think we can park.
Yeah, maybe let's park that one.
So, all of and also if you are working, I mean, COVID has changed things somewhat, but previously we used to commute quite a lot to and from work and spend quite a lot of money on transport and fuel and things like that. So the assumption is all of those costs are either going to reduce or fall away completely. So you're not going to need your entire salary in retirement. And that's why it is assumed that you're going to need about 75% of your final salary. So the last salary that you earn in the year that you retire, you'll need about 75% of that because all those other major costs have fallen off. That's the ether. That's how the method behind the calculation. And how do we get to it? It's different for everyone. So it depends on your lifestyle. What kind of life do you want to live in retirement? And that differs for everyone, right? Do you want to travel? Do you want to live on a farm? Do you want to live with all of your children? It literally is how long is a piece of string, right, is what we're solving for. But for the purpose of today, to simplify it, the average South African today takes home about 21,000 rands, right? This is according to Q1 statistics. So the gross salary is around 30,000 rands. And so if we go by that number, how much would a typical South African need in retirement to retire? So 75% of the 30% works out to 22,500. Okay. So you will need about 22,500 to fund your lifestyle in retirement if you are the typical South African. And the rule of thumb is for every 5,000 rand that you need to live on, you need to have 1 million rand saved.
So we're already over 4 million.
It's 4.5 million.
Yeah, 4.5
roughly,
million.
Right?
Wow.
And that number is huge. So whenever I say this now, and 21...
Because we think of millions and I'm a millionaire and yet
Right.
it might not even be enough for me to maintain my lifestyle.
And the scary thing, Jeanette, is that most people don't get close to that 4.5 million in retirement.
We know
Very
only
scary.
less than 10%
Yeah.
of South Africans can retire with
Correct.
dignity and carry on.
Yeah.
But if I may ask you a follow-up question, there's one thing we didn't talk about. Not everything post-retirement is cheaper. What about medical inflation? What
Correct.
about retirement homes?
Yeah, that's it. Medical expenses are probably the biggest undoing for people in retirement. And in a country like ours, if you want to still continue or enjoy using private facilities, you have to pay for that medical aid.
Yeah.
And we know that it's medical aid inflation is way above normal inflation. It's in the
Correct.
double digits.
Yeah.
And that makes up quite a big chunk of people's budgets in retirement. So so there are certain costs that grow by far greater than what inflation rate is.
Bonnie, I want to come back to you. I've heard about and you've spoken to me about your 360 strategy for life.
Yes.
Please enlighten us a little bit on how you think about that and how you coach people to have a strategy for their life as on top of the strategy for everything else.
Well, thank you, Jeanette. You know, we work for those who are working and have businesses. We have intentional, deliberate, documented strategies that explains what business you are in, why you're in that business, etc., to answer all the critical questions of life. And for many people, professionals, and I can tell you because I've been doing this work for over 20 years, I find that professionals do not have a personal strategy, a personal plan, right? And therefore, they come into organizations or start businesses without a personal plan. We people first. This is a 360 world. So we cannot be successful in the world of business or world of work when you do not have a personal plan. And so inadvertently what happens is that you get swallowed by your
Life.
work. You get swallowed by everything else that you intentionally or unintentionally have prioritized. And we prioritize work, thinking that when we prioritize work, we'll be good with money. It actually is not the case. So I'm encouraging people wherever I go. I don't only work in South Africa, I work throughout the continent, and all my clients, anybody who has crossed paths with me know that I'm saying 360. There's a business side, there's a work side, and you can be successful on that side. But what about your personal side, you as a person, the money side, the health side, and everything else? And also your happiness index. It's like we picked up.
All influenced.
It's all influenced by that, right? So what I'm saying today, when we talk about money, I'm saying that your wheel of life, your entire plan should then be saying, I'm writing reports for the organization, I'm seeing stakeholders, I'm writing a strategy, I'm leading a team, I'm doing all sort of things, but who am I? Who is the person behind this? And I heard you talk about, you know, retirement villages, or just having a retirement, going to a retirement home, you know, spending more money. Reality is that the person behind an effective retirement plan needs to be saying, what part of the culture, because there's a cultural issue here, what part of the culture is relevant for me today?
True.
Because there are some cultures that frown upon retirement homes, right? And there are some cultures that frown upon women being the ones that lead in terms of financial planning in homes. So when I'm leading and my husband's friends are listening to this and they see it and they like, you know, your wife is like in charge of you, what's wrong with you? But reality is that women do know how to save money.
Absolutely.
Women know how to invest and use the money that they have. If you look at culturally in our homes, we plan weddings, we plan funerals, we plan baby showers.
There's money involved.
There's money involved. So why can't we just plan for tomorrow effectively?
And actually, early this morning, one of our listeners actually said that his wife has more time.
Yes.
And that therefore, you know, he would rather entrust her to do this because she has more time.
I heard him.
And you know, how wonderful is that? That it's a real partnership. It is actually not, you know, to be left to just, you know, one of the two partners, which brings me to, and I was quoted on that this morning, but Gugu, I have a belief in, and I might have coined the phrase that says a man is not a financial plan.
Yes.
And that every
And
woman
I like
should
it.
have her own plan. So there's no men bashing here. We love all of you, but it is about empowering yourself to have your own plan. But why is that so important, that women also have their own plans?
I think it was mentioned in your previous conversations as well, is that women tend to live longer. So we've got more years of life, right? So you cannot depend fully on your spouse for your financial sustenance. We are more likely to be single parents. This is according to the statistics, right? Because of divorce. Or the high prevalence of divorce, and we know how expensive it is to have to look after children. And I help women mostly in my practice, and the biggest complaint that single parents, single women complain about is the cost of raising children, and the fact that they don't get the support that they need from their spouses, or the parent, the other parent to this. And so for those reasons, it is so important for women to be able to stand and self-sustain when it comes to their personal finances, whether you're in a partnership or not. And I think historically our mothers have deferred that responsibility to their partners, but it no longer suits.
Well, there's also a statistic linked to this, and it simply says that 90% of all women will be the financial decision maker at some point in their lives.
Yes.
But either because of what you've just said, or otherwise because they are probably going to outlive their spouse or partner, and therefore 90% of us women will have to make the financial decisions at some point in our lives. I was asked that we take a break, and we will be back with this wonderful topic. We still have some time. Please stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back to talk about your relationship with money.
Momentum is back with Season 8 of She Owns Her Success. This year's theme, Her Success Has a Number, unpacks how most financial goals don't fall short because we lack ambition. They fall short because they're too vague. Register now for the workshop on 15 August 2026 at momentum.co.za and get expert advice to help you define your number. Join the conversation online using hashtag #SheOwnsHerSuccess. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized and registered credit provider.
987 Women celebrates women who are actively shaping the future.
Now we're talking.
And you are on Power Talk. We're in the last 35 minutes of a wonderful conversation this morning. You are with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group, and this is the takeover called She Owns Her Success. And we are talking about women and retirement, and our theme is that success has a number, and we're also talking about the psychology of money and your own relationship with money and how that influences whether you are going to be able to retire with dignity. But I do want to remind you of our competition. The lines will be open at 11:35 when we will take our final competition call. So, what percentage of South African women say they feel financially secure today? That is our question that you will need to answer in order to win the 3,000 Rand. Go to Power 98.7 Facebook or X page, like the Momentum competition post, comment and include hashtag She Owns Her Success.
You're listening to 987 Women,
Celebrating incredible women of vision.
Keriboni, I could see that you were burning to link onto Gugu's answer just before the break we took. Is there anything that you'd like to add about the importance of women having their own plans?
I actually do, because I think, when Gugu spoke, and I just thought, this is a deeper mental model and wiring issue, right? A mindset thing, it a norms thing in terms of companies, that of communities, that we are raised to believe that men must lead. And like you said, listen, I'm married, happy, we love the men, right? But I'm just saying here that the cultural nuances and what we've been made to understand in our parents, were literally leaving everything to our fathers to run the household. But reality is that things are different. And I'm now specifically urging women to find an intentional way of rewiring and rethinking this thing. Because we are in 2026. The world that our mothers and grandmothers lived in is so different to our world today. And for example, the number statistics are showing us that divorce rate was far lesser now. Women today are more empowered. And you cannot be empowered in the workplace, sit on the board, be a CEO, and get home and pretend you know absolutely bugger all. Right. So there are conversations that I believe must be held in families with the children, Gugu being here, I love your books, girl, but also with our spouses to say, I'm not lesser than, I am a partner here. Can we have these conversations? Because something's got to give.
Keriboni, you've just actually touched on a topic that I'm deeply passionate about. I have spent my entire career in a male-dominated world. That is just the way it is. 3 years ago, when I was appointed as the group CEO, I was the first woman of a large listed South African life insurer in South Africa, and it was a big deal. To me, it's still a big deal. The sadness is that it is 3 years later, and that situation has not changed at all. I'm still the only one. And I would want to live in a world where we're not special because we're the only one. It's actually, an equal conversation. But that is not the topic of this morning. Yeah. What I have experienced, though, is an unconscious bias. And I think what you touch on, yes, it's cultural, but I think it's true for all cultures, that there's an unconscious way in which we judge women versus men, that we think women is just the nurturer, the carer, and that our fathers, the men in our lives, are the conquerors and so forth. But probably a topic for another day. But I do want to touch on that. Just why do you think couples find it so difficult to have these conversations? Because it is bigger and deeper than culture, isn't it?
It is bigger and deeper than culture. And when I say culture, it's not even a race thing.
No, not at all.
It is across. I work with people across cultures, and this is an issue. So it is just how we were raised. It's just how we believe by doing the right thing is just as a woman staying away from the financial management of the household, and not talk about investments and stuff like that, because your partner, your spouse will take care of those kind of things. You want to be the pretty woman.
Yes.
Lovely. Sit in the corner and smile, right?
Yes.
But not in 2026. We have countless examples of women who are left not knowing when the husband dies. They actually don't know how much debt the husband was
accumulated.
in.
You think there's life insurance, you think there's provision made.
You think you've never seen any document. So that's why I'm saying let's be intentional about money and having a relationship with money without shying away from it.
Gugu, how often do you see women who arrive at your doorstep desperate because they're in exactly the situation that Kedibone has just described? And what do you do with them? Where do you start to help and advise them in that process?
Yeah, I think it's all too common. Historically, the investment decisions have always been deferred to the males, and the day-to-day financial decisions, so how the money is spent on groceries and uniform and things like that, that's always been the realm of women. And a lot of and I find that quite fascinating, because that's most households. And apparently, in a lot of the research that I found, is that it's got to do with your capabilities, or your belief in your capabilities to do mathematics. Can you believe it? And that goes all the way to childhood. Boys are always, this is historically now, always been pushed to do maths or maths type of subjects, and they've always had this confidence in their ability to solve mathematical problems, and they take that into adulthood, and then therefore investments, and they can do investments in inverted commas. Whereas it's been the opposite with women, and that's apparently why we tend to shy away from making investment decisions. And so a big part of my job, which is very similar to what Kedibone does, is to help women unlearn a lot of those behaviors and to re-educate them about the importance of financial knowledge and how it's going to benefit them in the future.
Now, in this studio, I'm not the boss, the clock is, and it is time for our headlines with Nhlanhla Siume.
Thanks a lot, Jeanette. The story is making headlines. The head of investigations and operations at IDAC, Matthew Sissoko, says certain sensitive matters, including crime intelligence files, bypassed normal reporting channels and were also referred directly to former IDAC head, Advocate Andrea Johnson's office. Testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, Sissoko also told commissioners that specific case files and crime intelligence matters were classified as sensitive. He says these matters were not discussed openly and were handled exclusively through Johnson's office. Sissoko's testimony sheds further light on IDAC's internal reporting structures.
There were matters that would come directly to the ID's office. And colloquially in the office, they would call them ID matters, because the ID would have taken decision on those matters. And in the OMC, they wouldn't be discussed. So the CI matters would be one of those where there wasn't discussion really about them.
Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi says government is working to ensure that millions of South Africans who remain digitally excluded are brought into the digital economy. His remarks come as two major mobile network operators challenge ICASA's new consumer protection regulations, which require unused data, voice and SMS bundles to roll over instead of expiring. Malatsi says that while significant progress has been made in expanding digital connectivity, more work is needed to ensure underserved communities have access to reliable, affordable internet services.
The cost of data in South Africa is still very high and unaffordable to many households, despite the advances and interventions that have been made, in the last couple of years, which are commendable. But the reality is, when you look collectively in terms, the cost of living in South Africa has increased over the last couple of years, and the demand and dependency on data consumption has equally increased and grown, which means that it is now an essential, oxygen in many households in the pursuit for either better opportunities for life, access to government services, or even learning opportunities.
And we end with this. South Africans are being urged to prepare for potentially disruptive weather as a powerful winter storm system comes across the country over the Women's Day long weekend. The South African Weather Service says the system is expected to make landfall in the Western and Northern Cape on Sunday before spreading to other parts of the country, bringing freezing temperatures, heavy rainfall and possible snowfall over high-lying areas. Here's forecaster Tukelo Chilwani with the details.
Rain and showers expected over many areas, while snow is expected over the mountain ranges of the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. There is a small chance of light snowfalls over the high-lying areas.
I'll have more details on this and other power news at midday.
The 2026 987 Women of Vision.
Power 987 celebrates extraordinary women leaders in society.
Who's from the Department of Education? What concrete assurances can we give parents that children are not currently being harmed or supervised by individuals that should have never been allowed near them in the first place?
As an administrative function in education, we are making sure that these schools in each and every province will have that to make sure that we can rid our schools of these excellence and making sure that we can bring parity within our sector and in no point will allow for a situation where young vulnerable learners are against those people that shouldn't be
celebrating incredible women of vision.
The 2026 987 Women of Vision. Now we're talking.
Yes, people, if you're in the market for a car, listen up. Hatfield Motor Group is bringing the heat with the Hot Deals Festival. Don't miss out on the hottest deals on vehicles on our floors, with serious value and offers worth talking about. Plus, join us for Test Drive Saturdays with entertainment, family fun, and unbeatable vibes. Go and feel the heat at any Hatfield Motor Group dealership. Visit hatfieldgroup.co.za for more info.
Hatfield Motor Group, rated number 1 in service.
Power 987 celebrates women who lead with vision.
987 Women of Vision. Now we're talking.
And we are in the last half hour of Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marais. I'm from the Momentum Group, and I have great privilege today to share with you a topic so close to my heart that is all about women in retirement. Success has a number, and it is the She Owns Her Success takeover. Now, as promised, it is 11:35. Our lines are open, and it is our final Momentum She Owns Her Success competition moment. Let's find out if there's a caller on the line who has the answer and who knows what percentage of South African women say they feel financially secure today. On the line, I have Arnold.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Arnold. Do you know the answer? What percentage of South African women say they feel financially secure today?
68%.
Yay! Where's our applause? Let's get it. There's 3,000 Rand cash coming your way, courtesy of Momentum's She Own Her Success campaign. Please stay on the line so our producer can take your details. Once more, congratulations, Arnold. Thank you for participating. Thank you for listening. Thank you for calling in. Congratulations to all three our winners of the 3,000 Rand amount this morning. Time flies when you are making other women's and men's wallets grow. Success indeed has a number.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody.
Power 987 celebrates women who lead with vision.
987 Women of Vision. Now we're talking.
And we are in the last 23 minutes of having fun talking about our relationship with money. With me in the studio, I'm Jeanette Marais. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group, and it is the takeover She Owns Her Success for Women's Month. With me in studio, Kediboni and Gugu. We've had a brilliant conversation so far. Kediboni, I want to come back to you and as a coach, ask you, why do women find it so difficult to take control of their finances?
You know, I speak to a lot of women, and I find that it's kind of, we wired from this phrase, for peace sake, right? for the sake of peace,
Let me not talk.
Let me not talk about it. Let me walk away from it. I'll throw in a suggestion here and there. And let me tell you, quite a number of my clients are CAs or executives, C-band. But when we get home, for peace sake,
we change.
Yeah, we change. And that for peace sake for me is deep, because it then goes to a point of saying, for peace sake and for the sake of this marriage, right? And the question I'm asking is, how far do you want to go to be left on a ledge if that happens, not knowing what's happening? You literally are swimming and nobody says to you, notice there are crocodiles in this river and there's some hippos, but you're kind of hoping that everything
and
is
hope
okay.
is not a strategy.
And hope is not a strategy, because those, again, who have crossed paths with me, I do work with business schools, and my passion, my strong point is strategy and strategy formulation. So it can be quite frustrating to realize that people who have the capability and capacity to put together a strategy, when they get home, they sit back and wait and look up to someone who can't put together that strategy at times. And I'm not saying men cannot, but at times
it's a partnership.
It's a partnership.
And
Can
it's a
we
conversation.
Together? It's a conversation. Yeah.
Gugu, as a wealth manager, you deal with people's financial decisions every day. How often do you find that someone's financial challenges are not only about money, but about their behavior and their mindset?
Yeah. The genesis of your financial decisions and the struggles are actually personal, right? It's got to do with the relationships in your life and how they influence your money, for example. It's got to do with how you were raised with money and the money scripts. I mean, I heard Paul earlier talk about money scripts, and it's very, very prevalent. People will often repeat the thing that their parents used to say about money all the time in meetings. So the personal side of money really does drive the technical side of money, and it's equally important.
Yes.
And how often do we see that children, same parents, same household, behave very, very differently towards money, right? So the topic this morning is the psychology of money. Why understanding your relationship with money is the first step to financial freedom. If you've missed the first half hour of this conversation, we're talking about the psychology of money. I'm talking to two coaches, Kediboni Moy, an executive and business coach, and Gugu Sadaki, a top independent financial advisor. And we both need both these, all of us need both these coaches, because money is where the head and the heart collide. Gugu, let's talk about our children. We've actually just started talking about children and how they behave differently. I find it fascinating that you write children's books. I have them in my hands here. It is wonderful. I see that it's all about the invest piggy bank and it's about the share piggy bank, so I personally, I've always said that, one day when I'm not doing what I'm doing at the moment, absolute passion to teach our kids the things that parents don't teach them, to actually make it a subject at school, that children from a young age can learn to behave differently towards their money. Now, young people always think they're too young to plan for retirement, but you actually write these books for toddlers about money. Is that not too early?
Never.
Never too early. Like planting a tree 20 years ago was the best time.
Exactly. There's this number, again, I quote statistics because I'm a huge reader, but your financial habits are formed by the time you're 7. You may not have the language for it to say this is a budget, this is investments and things like that, but you're observing the dominant adult in your life do certain things with a credit card, with cash. Every time you're in the shops, you throw a tantrum, they give you what you want.
You hear them fight?
They fight about money all the time, and that is what creates our money scripts and ultimately determines the kind of people that we are with money in adulthood. So that's why those books were written, because we find that we are now dealing with adults who were never spoken to about money, who learned really terrible behaviors about money from their parents, and now we're having to undo all of that work before we start doing the right kind of work.
It's generational.
Very much so. And like you said, it's not taught in schools, so it really is an important subject.
Kediboni, you're welcome to
also
come in.
And I had this conversation with Gugu earlier to say the way we were parented must be different to the way we raise our kids.
Yes.
Right? And the conversations that parents have with their kids are not really just about soccer. Did you play today? Who's your friend?
How was your day?
How was it's really, they must be deeper.
Yeah.
Because in my team coaching sessions and group coaching sessions, I do ask people, how are you parenting differently? Especially what I'm passionate about is women's groups, women in leadership. To say, how are you parenting differently? What conversations do you have with your children?
Yeah.
Do you talk about money?
Yeah.
And many of them say no.
Yeah. It is changing, though. It is such an interesting thing.
Mm.
The parents who raised us come from the silent generations. They were taught by parents who never weren't necessarily open about topics like this. But I find that this generation, which is why the books came about, this generation is a lot more open, maybe not as prevalent as we would like it to be, but the conversations are starting to happen.
They're
Yes.
starting to happen.
Absolutely.
Because I looked at your books and I was like, there's so much need for
Yes,
this.
that's
Huge.
true. That's so true. So, Katie Bonnie, let's change tack a little bit. We actually had Paul here earlier, and Paul was open and willing to share that he, in a way, due to behavior that he's experienced when he was growing up, he find that he's defining himself through what he owns, or we see it all around us. You only want to be on an aeroplane on a Sunday night, trust me, and you see the glitz, you see the brand names, it oozes out. So a lot of people define themselves through what they own, or then, of course, when the reality is through what we can provide for others. But how do you separate your self-worth from your financial status? Because it's not the same thing, is it?
It's not the same thing, but it's linked, right? It's linked in that, and I'm not saying people who wear brands and love branded items.
That it's wrong.
No, it's not wrong. But I'm saying if that becomes priority, if you prioritize that, if you wear brands today, and there's a saying, I grew up in Soweto, there's a saying that you live large today and tomorrow will take care of itself, right? And so you will wear the brands and you will drive a big car and you actually don't save any money. Every cent you have goes into the expenditure of the current
and often debt
liabilities, because they are not assets, right? And so I come across it a lot in coaching, and we talk about that because I'm very passionate about that. I'm passionate about tomorrow. Because I have seen a lot of people who are nearing retirement and they don't know what to do and how to take care of that. So yes, it was prevalent where I grew up, where we stayed in matchbox houses, but there were people who would spend money on brands. People spend money on huge parties when they actually have not...
Which they couldn't afford.
They actually, people go in and get a loan to throw the biggest party, right? Whereas 20 years later, or maybe 10 years later for some, and some are 55 and they actually don't have retirement plans. And so I listened to the first two callers when you started, Jeanette, and the ladies were saying they have what we call societies in communities. And they have that, and they save a lot of money, but then they share that money in December. And then there's a big party, okay, and fantastic clothes. So that for me, it's just wanting to live to get today and forget about tomorrow. But what we are talking about today is, what are your numbers for tomorrow?
Yes.
The simple reason that we're having an investment is that we're saying, I want to be as happy, as comfortable as I am today, and make sure that I'm saving for tomorrow.
Yeah. And I mean, in order to maintain this lifestyle for the rest of your life, the reality is that you only have now, while you are being paid a salary, whether it is by your own business, whether it is by earning a salary like, someone like I do, I am deeply aware that there will be a day when I can no longer work. And then all I have is that what I have saved will then need to pay me an income.
Absolutely.
So today, that is the provision that I absolutely have to make. Yeah. So Gugu, if every South African woman listening today had to calculate one number that could change the way she thinks about her financial future, what number should she start with? You gave us, such a simple way this morning or a little bit earlier to think about how much we need. But what would that number be for each woman?
Yeah. The retirement discussion is really important. In a country like ours where people cannot afford to sustain themselves in retirement, it really has to be prioritized. I think our contribution towards our financial future is the important one. And obviously it depends on when you start and how much you have preserved in your retirement pocket, right? But if you're starting in your 20s, the bare minimum that you should be putting away is 15%. And it sounds like such a big number. Whenever I tell people this, their eyes go really, really wide open. It sounds like it's too much money because they want to be able to spend today. But if you commit 15% today, you only need to increase it by inflation as you age. So you never have to adjust that number. But it gets harder the older you get.
And the later you start.
Yes, the later you start, the more difficult it becomes to commit a number, because now you've got competing financial responsibilities. You've got children, you've got a bond, you've got a car, all sorts of things. So in your 20s, if you just started working, commit 15% and then leave it alone.
And then you actually live into that.
Absolutely.
You don't miss it anymore,
No,
right?
you
Yes,
adjust. You adjust. And if in your 30s, obviously the number becomes higher. You need to at least be committing 20% of your gross. And then obviously in your 40s, the number is even higher, and it becomes almost impossible.
Yeah.
And that should be in the region of about 40%.
Oh. So we need to take a short break. Please don't go anywhere. We've got some more in store with you. We're going to try and help you find what your number is.
This Women's Month, Power 987 proudly presents Women of Vision, a celebration of women whose leadership continues to shape business, government, society, and our nation. Join us from the 6th to the 7th of August as Women of Power take over the station. Hashtag 987 Women of Vision is proudly brought to you in partnership with the South African National Defence Force, Gauteng Department of Economic Development, Momentum, and the Department of Human Settlements. Hashtag 987 Women of Vision. Now we're talking.
With the cost of living continuing to rise, every rand counts. That's why the Total Energies Club gives you 45 cents cashback per litre every Friday at participating Total Energies service stations. And the best part, membership is absolutely free. Be sure to tune in to Power Breakfast on Friday as Tsepiso Musia brings you live crossing from Total Energies Dube in Moroka, Nansfield Road, Dube, Soweto between 6 and 9 in the morning. Now, simply just fill up at Total Energies Dube and you could win an instant fuel voucher worth 8,000 rand every hour. Total Energy is making every litre count. Power 98.7. Now.
A.m. to noon. This is Power Talk on Power 987.
It is indeed true that time flies when you're having fun. You are in the last few minutes of Power Talk with me, Jeanette Marie, as your host this morning, talking about She Owns Her Success and Success Has a Number. But a formidable woman has just entered the studio here, and I want to just do a look forward into our new guest presenter for the next, I suppose, 3 hours, Minister Thembi Simelane, our Minister of Human Settlements. Minister, please share with us what your show is going to be about. I'll be in the car listening.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a very beautiful. Thank you very much to all the listeners and good morning to a beautiful panel. I was listening through. I've got some financial tips as well. I'm going to come out better. Don't worry, it's going to be better. It's going to be better. It worked out for me, really. I have my notes taken. Good 3 hours, 12 to 3, women who are leading with vision, community development, partnerships, collaboration, sisterhood. but development. Who says women must not make money? So I'm looking at women in security who are running their own entities. So as we look at GBV with a different eye, really, and not only a complaining eye, what are women from a security industry trying to do? And I'm feeding South Africans on a food security basket. I'm bringing a beautiful girl, Tutu, who's going to come and teach us what it means to be an agripreneur. And not from big farm level. I hand over decent 400 square meters roughly of a yard with a 40 square meter house. No one eats grass. That's my message. No one eats grass. So Ntutu is supposed in each and every house that I try to plant, we teach a young person, an old mother, an aunt, plant food for yourself so you don't visit a market again. That's the story line. Of course, it's powerful.
Thank you, Minister. We all look forward. Like I say, I'll be in the car listening to you, going back to the office. Thank you very much. We look forward to listen to you later on.
Beautiful.
So now we have a few minutes left of the Power Talk, which is only until 12 o'clock with me, Jeanette Marie, as your host. I'm the CEO of the Momentum Group. And I had great fun this morning talking about a topic very close to my heart, which is all about women and retirement. It is Women's Month. It is August. We change our logo. We become Womentum for the month. And we try and take over the world. But right now, all we're trying to figure out is what is that number that is linked to my success. With me in studio, two people, two coaches, two very wise women. Kediboni, you an author and executive coach. Let me get to maybe one of the last questions for you. What does a healthy relationship with money look like? What beliefs or behaviors should people start developing if they want to create a different financial future for themselves?
Okay, thanks, Jeanette. In the interest of time, I'm going to say talk about it.
Yes.
Be comfortable to talk about it with everyone who's in your life. Think about it. Plan for it. Write the numbers down. Do your budget, because I know women can. As I said, we organize functions even in our home spaces. So go there. 2, get a thought partner. You know, when you say an advisor or a broker, people are thinking,
I don't have one. Where do I find one?
Where do I find one? Okay, you've come to the right place. We'll tell you where to find one. And I hope you do that before you end the show, right? Because I'm a client of Momentum myself. So I understand and I know the value of having an advisor. So have someone that you have a conversation with about money and be intentional about it.
Yes. So, Gugu, very shortly, top 3 things that someone who's listening today should go and do today, not tomorrow, today.
I have to agree 100% with everything that Oskidiboni has said. I'd like to add, you have to improve your financial knowledge. That is free, right? We all have the internet. We all have books that we can access. Get as much information as you can about personal finances. And remember, personal finances are personal. So what's good for the next person isn't necessarily good for you. Right? And number 2, prioritize overall well-being. Okay, while looking after your money, you have to look after your physical well-being, emotional, psychological, and physical, because you don't want to get to the end of your working life and you are not well enough to enjoy the money. Nurture the relationships in your life so that you have people to share this money with, right? Contribute towards the community. All of those things are important. And then finally, and I'm not saying this just because I'm a financial advisor, but get a thought partner, an accountability partner, a financial advisor, somebody who's trained, skilled, and knowledgeable about the subject that can help you through it, navigate this very important aspect of your life.
I will share with you that, personally, I have only worked for financial services companies. I've grown up in them. I've matured in them. Here I am leading one today.
Yeah.
And the second most important man in my life is my financial advisor. Yeah. He's been my advisor, my friend, my trusted partner for the last 25 years. And I ask him first before I would even have this discussion with my husband when it gets to finances. Why? Not that I don't know anything about finances. I know a lot. But I don't have the time. Yeah. I have knowledge about other things. My job takes over and then I forget, the sayings about the naughtiest kids are, you know, the kids who can't read is the teacher's kids or whatever, because we spend, like you said, Kiriboni, all our time on other things, and rather than to take care of our own finances. So I cannot agree with you more. Maybe a last 1 minute thought from each of you around the first practical steps that people can take to rebuild their relationship with money. Because I think, you know, this was an amazing 3 hours, but if people feel overwhelmed, what should they do? Kiriboni, let's start with you.
You know, I want to go back to the callers when you started the show. I think people should get to a space where they understand the value of picking up a call, asking questions, and being vulnerable.
Not be ashamed.
And not be ashamed to do that. And I quickly want to say, because if you don't do that, then you get into a space of walking in darkness and hoping that the light will come one day. And it can never satisfy you. Thank you so
wise
much.
Words. Thank you, Kiriboni. Gugu, last word from you.
One of the best ways I've found for people to get over the hump of managing their finances effectively is understanding or unpacking their values. If you understand what your values are, you understand what is intrinsically important to you. And once that is spelt out and written out on paper, I've found that people connect to that word or those words, and they are able to then link it to their financial decisions that they're supposed to make. And that usually is what makes the difference between good and bad financial habits, usually. So if you're going to do anything today, maybe just think about what your values are, your top 2 values, and see if you can connect that to your habits and your personal finances.
I agree.
And that is it. I cannot believe that 3 hours is gone. I walked in here this morning and I wondered how I'm going to survive this. Thank you to all of my guests. Thank you to the studio. Thank you to all our listeners. For those of you that participated and phoned in, this was great fun. And I wish each and every one of you the journey to financial freedom. Go and define what success is for you and find your number. Thank you very much. And it is over to the news with Letabo Mashaba. Thank you.
This segment was proudly brought to you by Momentum. She owns her success. Visit momentum.co.za to register for the workshop.
Power News.
Top stories this hour. The head of investigations and operations at the Investigative Directorate Against Corruption, or IDAC, Matthew Sissoko, says certain sensitive matters, including crime intelligence files, bypass normal reporting channels. And Communications Minister Solly Malatsi says government is working to ensure that millions of South Africans who remain digitally excluded are brought into the digital economy. With the Power News at 12, a very good afternoon. I'm Tlantla Sihume. We begin here. The head of investigations and operations at the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Matthew Sissoko, says certain sensitive matters, including crime intelligence files, bypass normal reporting channels and were referred directly to former IDAC head, Advocate Andrew